I did notice something on there. We have item 4, item 4.1, adoption of the April 26, 2022 regular council meeting minutes. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council adopt the April 26, 2022 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
All right, are there any comments, questions, errors, omissions on those minutes? Well done then. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And we have adoption, item 4.2, adoption of May 2nd, 2022 operating budget meeting minutes. Deputy Mayor.
I move that council adopt the May 2nd, 2022 operating budget meeting minutes as presented.
Any comments, questions, observations on that? Call the vote. All in favor? It's carried. So we will now take a recess to move into our public hearing. And I have some opening comments. And with the opening comments, I would like to welcome everyone to the public hearing that's held in accordance with Section 230 of the Municipal Government Act. We ask that everyone turn their cell phones off, but as long as Deputy Mayor Engel did, I think we're all good. And that all questions and comments be made through the chair when called upon. Everyone who so desires will have the opportunity to speak and be heard, but it will be done in an orderly fashion, as directed by the chair. Each presenter, when called upon, will take their place at the presenter's table. Someone will be there to help with the mic if you need a hand with that. You state and spell your name for the record, and can you please identify how you're affected by these amendments in your statement. Please remember, I already said that microphone. So we ask the presenters keep your comments brief, and that you don't repeat points that you've already mentioned. The purpose of this hearing is for council to consider all relevant information that we require in making our decision on this matter, and keep comments relative to the amendment packages information and the amendments at hand. So with that, I will call the public hearing to order at 6:15 p.m. And I'll just to review the purpose of the meeting. The public hearing is to consider the following: Bylaw 2022-05 Municipal Development Plan Amendment, Bylaw 2022-06 Shantz Village Area Structure Plan Amendment, Bylaw 2022-07 Land Use Bylaw Amendment, and the last and fourth item is disposal of municipal reserve, referred to as MR. These are all collectively part of a proposal to create a new commercial development within the area known as Shantz Village as a continuation of the existing uses of the land to the immediate north. And I think that we're going to have that put up there, so we're looking at what areas affected in Shantz Village.
We have a few images that will kind of scroll.
Okay. And all of these items were considered at the council meeting of April 12th, 2022, where first reading was approved for each of the bylaws, and the public hearing was set for today, May 10th, 2022, for all 4 of these proposed actions. For the past month, notices of the public hearing were posted on the Town of Disraeli website, in the Albertan newspaper, and through the town's social media platforms. The town did request comments to be submitted by Friday, May 6, 2022. The responses received by that time were included in the agenda package for council's consideration. So the order of business will be as follows. I'll just run through it so everybody knows what to expect. Our administrative team will introduce and provide an overview of the proposed 4 actions with regard to the development proposal. The applicant will have the opportunity to speak to the proposal and provide any additional information. Council will be given an opportunity to ask questions after those, the administrative team and the applicant speak. Then we'll get an overview of feedback received by administration. Then those in attendance in the gallery will be, that are wishing to speak will be asked to speak, and we'll go through that in an orderly fashion, of course. If there's lots to speak, we'll go in favor and then opposed, and if there's not that many, we'll go in order of hands. Then we have, I know Shantz Village Market Group has asked to speak in particular, so anyone, though we didn't have to submit your name, you certainly can come up and identify yourself as outlined. Council has lots of opportunity to ask questions. We'll have closing comment from the applicant. We'll have closing comments from administration. We'll have more opportunity for questions from council. And then last call for anyone in the gallery to provide new information that they might have. And one more round of council questions, so you can't say you didn't have enough opportunity to ask questions when making your decision. So with that, I am going to hand over the floor to the administrative team led by our CO Ethan Gorner, and from there we'll wait for his direction on who's going to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll have kind of an introduction or presentation of the proposal by our planning consultant, Mr. Chris Holmer with Urban Systems.
Hey Chris, welcome.
No, that's on? No. It is on?
There.
There we go. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you again. Always a pleasure. So as you've outlined, Your Worship, here to discuss and summarize the background for how we got to where we are tonight and discuss the request that's been put forward for you to amend the municipal development plan, the Shantz Village area structure plan, the land use bylaw, and as outlined in the introduction, to discuss the disposal of the current municipal reserve parcel on site. Excuse me, were you going to load the presentation, Ethan? Okay. Okay. But I don't have as many interesting movie quotes as the Pretty Woman. Perhaps I should introduce more of those into my presentations to make them a little livelier. So we will walk through, like I said, the background for where the application came from, the conversations that have taken place to date, and summarize portions of the package that you had in front of you to talk through ultimately what is being asked for you to consider. Could filibuster. Yes, 3 easy steps. Step 1, insert a button into your laptop. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's not critical. If we can just scroll to the images, and I'll kind of let you know when we get to those, to each of the different images that were up on the previous document. So if you want to go to that one, perfect. So the initial discussion focused on on the redesignation of the subject lands as indicated on this image here. And so when I say redesignation, what the applicant was looking to do was to change the current zoning within the land use bylaw from the R2, which is the general residential district, to the C1, which is the general commercial district, to accommodate the commercial development that they were looking to build. As we started those conversations around changing the land use bylaw, it required considerations of the higher statutory plans that the town has adopted and has in place that guide ultimately the tool, the land use bylaw, and how we regulate the land use. So what we needed to address at that point in time was how the redesignation of the land use bylaw would fit within the context of the current municipal development plan, as well as the Shantz Village Area Structure Plan that was amended in 2016. And in review of that conceptual plan that the applicant had initially put forward as their preliminary vision for what the lands could constitute in terms of a commercial development, as part of that review, we looked at where the municipal reserve was currently located and how that would be impacted as part of the redesignation and amendments to the plan relative to the original intent, which is to have the pathway located in the south and eastern portions of the land. So that forms the initial background as to how we initiated the conversation. If you want to move to the next slide, just a bit of an overview of ultimately where we went through in the conversations with the applicant and as an administrative team. So the subject lands, as illustrated on the previous image, are in the southwest corner of the Shantz Village. So these are along the 23rd Street and the Highway 582 corridors right at that intersection. So these lands are immediately south of the Bilo commercial development, and that was part of that preliminary phase of development within Shantz Village. So the lands east of this remain residential. So these areas, so this corner is the portion of the lands that the applicant is looking to rezone from the residential to the commercial. All lands east of the current subject lands along the Highway 582 corridor are not subject to any changes as part of this application. The access that has been preliminarily proposed along 23rd Street is not technically part of the decision to deal with the land use approval. It is part of the decision to address a policy specific to the Shantz Village Area Structure Plan. So within the Area Structure Plan, it talks very specifically about distance separations between intersections of the highway. And what we had proposed as a way to deal with this, without talking about specifically on the land use side of things, the distance can be determined in accordance with Alberta Transportation. And so where I say that this is not part of the decision on land use, the site access is part of how the decisions at the development permit stage will be addressed. And because Alberta Transportation, their highway is immediately adjacent to the lands, they ultimately have authority for what is required as a roadside development permit. So Alberta Transportation has the ultimate authority on what they will or will not allow in terms of distance separations from that intersection at the highway. And so we wanted to ensure that they would have full authority to determine what they felt was appropriate and put the appropriate policy in place to ensure that the area structure plan was not conflicting with what Alberta Transportation was willing to accommodate. So at this point, I raise that only to the extent that we want to address that policy within the ASP as part of this amendment, that we are not placing any conditions of access on the land use change. That would all be dealt with when it's time to review what is being proposed as the specific development permit and how the site will actually function and be fully developed. So this also looks at the notion of the municipal reserve. And again, this parcel no longer what you see there as the area outlined in red. Sorry, could you? I think I've skipped ahead. Yeah, we'll go to that one first. So we will jump to the municipal reserve once we get through the municipal development plan. In terms of an overview, so we're looking at, again, the planning context and addressing how is this dealt with within the overarching plans, the overarching policy documents being the municipal development plan and the area structure plan. So at the municipal development plan level, it is the entire Shantz Village is currently identified as industrial. And so what we've identified here as a proposed amendment to the municipal development plan is something that should have been accompanied with the 2016 amendment to the Shantz Village ASP. So the MDP was never addressed at that point in time. So what we're looking at here is really more of an administrative amendment to accommodate what is already in place and really has no specific bearing on the area structure plan and the land use bylaw amendment. What we're proposing is to put the mixed use lands designation that is in the municipal development plan on the entirety of the Shantz Village to accommodate what's already been built and developed and what has been proposed through the 2016 amendment to the Shantz Village ASP. And in the area structure plan itself, outlined in red on the bottom left, you see the area that is going to, would need to be changed from the current residential designation in the light blue area. That would have to be amended to commercial in order to accommodate the change to the land use bylaw. Okay, now you can go to the next one. So the existing land use bylaw uses show the entirety of the Shantz Village and how it has been zoned. And so the yellow area is the areas that are R2, and the area in red is the lands that are being proposed to change to the C1 commercial, which is an extension of the lands directly to the north and would provide a commercial corridor along the entirety of 23rd Street in the Shantz Village area. So the municipal reserve portion, so those are the areas on Lot 8, which are outlined in red, which is too small to see, but that indicates it's Lot 7 MR. So that area no longer serves the intent of the original area structure plan to put a pathway basically through those red arrows. The town has already moved to develop the pathway that is now on the west portion of the site, which the western part is technically not on Lot 8 itself. It is outside within the right-of-way. And then the north portion, which extends along the northern boundary of Lot 8, the subject lands. So the disposal of the municipal reserve, or the request for the disposal of the municipal reserve, is only removing that designation. So the town still retains title to it, but the town then is free to do whatever it chooses with those lands. When it has the municipal reserve designation, it has very strict requirements in accordance with the Municipal Government Act about what can or cannot be built, or more necessarily put on those municipal reserve lands. So at this point in time, with the trail extending along the western and the northern portions, regardless of any development being put in here, the town really no longer has a vested interest in maintaining municipal reserve status on that Lot 7. So that is the rationale behind the request for disposal of the MR designation. And again, any discussion around preservation of the trail, which has been a conversation with the applicant. As I said, the western portion does not technically fall within their boundary. The northern portion does, and what they have requested is that they would remove the trail as part of construction and replace it once the construction is complete. And so the question has come up, how do we make sure that the access is retained? And again, that is not part of how we determine the land use considerations, but is part of, excuse me, conditional approval of any development permit. So as development proceeds, there would be a development permit applications and discussion around development agreements and maintaining access through that trail. So that would be addressed at this time. For purposes of this public hearing and this decision, we're only looking at confirmation of disposal of the municipal reserve. Okay, and the final one. So what's being put forward for your consideration is to amend the municipal development plan, changing it from the current industrial area to mixed-use lands so that it would accommodate the entirety of the Shantz Village, putting forward amendments to the Shantz Village area structure plan, as well as the land use bylaw, changing the subject lands from residential to commercial, so that the commercial use would extend along the entirety of that 23rd Street corridor. And what is being put forward for consideration is disposal of Lot 7 MR, and to be addressed at a further point in time on what the town will do with that. So that concludes my summary.
Does anyone have questions right now? Go ahead. Corey, and Mary, and Susan.
Back in 2012, I'm just reading the letter from Alberta Transportation, so I can quote rightly. It talks about a study that was done by Urban Systems, and my understanding of that study showed that, I get that you're saying you're not promoting the roads right now, but that study showed that the nearest access, based on the kind of crossing we had, was where the current access to Shantz crossing is. Is that true?
Yes. So there was a traffic impact assessment done as part of the 2012 original area structure plan. And as part of what the applicant has put forward in terms of their discussion with Alberta Transportation is they were required to submit a confirmation that the transportation impact assessment remained valid in terms of the total trips and what that would do to the configuration of the highway and 23rd Street intersection. What they also were in consultation with Alberta Transportation was to get consideration from them to authorize the proposed access point on 23rd Street that was closer to the highway than what the current access point is. So those have been conversations that, upon our initial discussion with the applicant, were suggested that those needed to be addressed, because if you were changing the use, the transportation impact assessment needed to ensure that that change in use wasn't going to generate a significant amount of additional traffic that would then impact how the intersection improvements were originally designed. That being said, as I articulated earlier, at this point, those are things that we will have to address specifically when we get to the development permit approval, and specifically Alberta Transportation will have to confirm their approval of that. But it doesn't preclude the potential change in use. So it might preclude that access point, but it doesn't mean that that corner parcel couldn't still be whether residential or a commercial use because of the internal access points.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mario?
So I just wanted to clarify, I think you said that presently the entire development up there is designated industrial?
In the municipal development plan, so the overarching policy has that essentially entire north area as industrial. So in 2016, when the area structure plan was amended and the land use bylaw was amended, there was an oversight in not amending the municipal development plan at that point in time. So technically what should have happened there was the entire package as we are tonight should have been considered, so that the municipal development plan as the overarching document would have said, yes, from a policy perspective, we are willing to change that land use map. And so at this point, it's already built. The policy side of things are very consistent with what the Shantz Village area structure plan would have promoted. So now it is really an administrative amendment to the map to confirm the mixed use that is there approved through the residential, the commercial, well, the different types of residential and the commercial.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. Chris, in terms of the municipal reserve, we're talking about the disposal of the municipal reserve, and yet what you seem to indicate, I believe, is that the town is going to retain ownership of that property, or that small band strip. And it was my understanding that late last fall, there was an arrangement made between the town and the owner of that property that the new pathway region would be the municipal reserve alternate, that it would be switched to that new one. Can you explain what transpired there and what kind of development can go on the municipal reserve if the town, well, it's no longer going to be municipal reserve, if the town retains ownership of that band on the south and east end side of Lot 8?
So I'll address the first question. There was a motion to essentially flip the municipal reserve from where it was to the north and the west side. It is my recollection, and please feel free to correct me as I move forward here, Ethan, or anyone else. At that point in time, there was consideration of what was going to be put in place on that, and it wasn't uncertain as how the development or what type of development or the siting of the development. So the change in municipal reserve was not registered at land titles because it was still a bit of an unknown. It did not mean that the pathway wasn't going to be constructed, because it was determined that that was the preferred path based on how the development to the north had proceeded and what was likely to occur in the southern portions. So with that not being registered at that point in time, when the applicant was looking at what they could do on the site, according to land titles, the municipal reserve parcel was still the southern and eastern boundary, despite the fact that the pathway had already been constructed. So that had been a point of consideration in conversation with the applicant about what to do with that MR, because to your second question, essentially from a development perspective, there's really nothing that can go on the municipal reserve. So it has to be in a natural or open or park type setting, and the nature of that strip is too narrow to have any kind of functional municipal use without having the pathway as part of that. So it didn't serve a purpose for the applicant or any potential development there, and it no longer serves a purpose for what the town was trying to achieve with the extension of the pedestrian network in that area. So at this point, it's, yes, changing the designation, you still retain ownership of it, and then at that point, it's a conversation with the landowner on how are we going to create an agreement to transfer that ownership.
And just to add to that, and from the town's perspective, administratively, there's very little value because the use for which we can't get that use out of it, and so most likely that'll be a further conversation that we'll have, and we'll explore that. That's kind of a secondary thing, but most likely we'll use that towards protecting our interest in the pathway that is going to remain there, as was mentioned in there, but we'll have to protect our interest in the pathway through a different means.
Are there other questions right now? Any other questions?
Just, thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm wondering about the town and ensuring that we maintain the walkway and municipal reserve for that walkway. And I understand that there's going to be negotiation and everything else, but I think it's pretty important that we have pedestrian access there and that it be retained where it is right now. And I'm wondering why we aren't going to just relocate that municipal reserve to encompass the walkway along the north side of Lot 8 to ensure that we still have that pedestrian access and not subject to negotiation.
Well, I would say in terms of subject to negotiation, at some point, it's not even necessarily negotiation. It is a requirement at the time of the development agreement that there is something that is registered on title that allows for access to that pathway. So whether it's through easement agreement or a mutual agreement between the developer and the town, that there has to be a retained access that sticks to the title itself. So whether that's through municipal reserve or just through an agreement on title, that would protect the town's interests on maintaining that access and prevent any developer or even future developer from coming in and tearing that out, because that sits on title. When you have the municipal reserve designation, now through that agreement process, you can create your own mutual agreements on how that's going to be maintained. When it's just a small sliver of municipal reserve, you're going to be 100% responsible for simply that small sliver, and it's not going to necessarily connect the way that the applicant might want to connect their internal flow system. So what we've thought at this point in time is to create the portion, get rid of the existing reserve, keep the pathway as it's currently built, and find an appropriate mechanism that both sides can agree to retain the access and ensure that public can continue to utilize that, and it's going to be maintained in accordance with what both the town needs and ultimately what the applicant needs to ensure adequate and proper pedestrian flow throughout their entire site. You're welcome.
And we have powers within the development permit stage to require those kind of, to, like Chris says, there's not a negotiation where we require our interests to be protected in that, in the issue of any permit.
Okay, I see no more questions at this point. Thank you, Chris. And Ethan, the applicant, is here. I'm sorry, I wasn't introduced to him.
Or it's his representative.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I didn't introduce him, but please come up, because I didn't get your name.
Short guy at the back.
We weren't sure who was coming, so.
Okay. Do you know now?
We do know now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you introduce him now?
Yeah, certainly. This is, well, maybe Chris.
Do you want me to say it? It might be
Yeah.
easier.
Patter O'Ryan.
So, yeah, thank you. So my name's Patter O'Ryan, and I'm with Dev2. So, Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. And I like your motto, and we're very, hopefully, we'll be part of that and help the town grow, which is why we're here. No, it's okay. So, in an effort to keep it brief, I'll read my notes if you don't mind, to save me wandering. So our first step when we come to a community after we identify a site as suitable is to engage with the town, which would be administration, declare our interest and our intention to solicit feedback from them, which I think we've done reasonably well. And Developments 2 specializes in secondary markets, like in towns like Didsbury, and we can show a successful track record with these developments. Our business model is to build and retain our projects, and this brings a unique set of circumstances to the fore for us. We've a vested interest then in not only creating relationships, but maintaining them over the long term, and that's with the town, with local trades, and with communities, with the community at large. Right? We have a heavy emphasis on hiring local trades as much as we possibly can when we go to a new community, and I think that that's one of our it's a major point with us when we move into a new area. Right? And quality is woven into the fabric of our projects because we retain ownership of them. Right? And we engaged with Alberta Transportation, and we had them sign off on that new access because we understood that it was very important. So we've had numerous meetings with them over the setback on 538, is it? 582, and on that new access. So, and during those conversations with them, it was required of us that we show that we had the required distance from the centre of road and 582 to the centre of our new access. And the other item that they had asked for was that we would do a revised traffic impact assessment. And Bunt did that for us. I'm sure we're familiar with them. And in the end, that whatever upgrade might have been required to that major junction would happen regardless of our development. And I think that was the major finding that came out of that Bunt had. Right? We understand, and we also realized early on in the conversation with the town that existing asphalt path was important to the community and the existing stakeholders. So we shifted our building that was on the west side of our development over to the east so that we could create a swale there, and that avoided any engineering issues with drainage on that side and allowed that path to remain there intact, where we would have no, it would just could stay where it was. And on the north end, we do have to take a portion of the path out to allow the buildings to go in, but it'll be put back again at the same time as we, as soon as we're done. So it's our intention to leave those paths there and integrate our own pathway into that sort of pedestrian access into the Shantz development. And we're a firm believer that development brings more business and that we'll all benefit from that. So, and at this point, we've put quite a lot of our financial resources into getting to the stage where we are. I can say we look forward to taking this project through to completion and becoming citizens of Disbury. Okay. Any questions? Or am I, it's probably enough for me to say that. Sorry, Mayor.
I have a couple. So you made the comment about Alberta transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So, they said that you have to do a new study and it would be a type 2A or type 2C. So just to clarify, you're saying that whichever type it is, I'm assuming it's 2C that will be required? Or like, what did they decide on?
I'll have to go and look, and actually I have to admit that there's a whole list of what those intersections are, and I have no idea what the different intersections. It's down to whether we have an extra right lane coming in off the highway going onto 23rd.
Okay.
So they had decreed that whatever upgrade was to have happened on that intersection, I think it was in 2024, or whatever year that was to happen, it would happen regardless of that development going ahead.
And one other question, what types of businesses have you lined up for in there?
At this point, there's a pizza joint in there, I think, and my job is to build them and to get them through. And I'm not sure. I think there was a discussion with a gas bar group in there, and so I can find out what that is and we can pass them along. But at this point, I'm not totally sure where the leasing folks are at with it.
Yes, you did?
Yeah, I was, and that's a worthy thing to be interested in. I just sort of pointed that it's the businesses that are going aren't relevant to the land use itself, to the matter at hand, and so it's kind of separate outside of the public hearing, though it is a thing that we're probably all interested in.
Would I still have the opportunity after the public hearing?
Outside of the public hearing, sure.
To talk to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'll finish my questions then.
You can't have the public hearing because we carry on with our meeting, but anyway, another time. I just want to, I'm going to call this a quick recess, because I think Deputy Mayor should talk to Ethan about this question that you asked me just now. So could I excuse you two just to resolve a question that Councilor Will has, the Deputy Mayor will has, so just a short recess. All right, are there other questions right now? None right now, but we have a bit more information to go through, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
We might see some later. I will. And now I'll ask administration to review feedback received into the, based on public hearing notices.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. And as noted in your opening remarks, this was widely advertised, and we also sent out a notice of this public hearing to numerous referral agency and government bodies to get their input on this. From all the government bodies, other than transportation, we received no concerns with the proposal. Alberta Transportation did identify some comments with regards to traffic impacts, but set forth that that would be looked at the development permit stage. And with regards to the general proposal, they didn't have any objections, specifically to the changes to the NDP or the land use bylaw. These have all been included in Council's information that they received on Friday. We also included comments from a representative of the Shantz Village Market Group who expressed opposition to the proposal, and so those comments have been included in Council's information that they received on Friday, as well as their request to speak, and so they've been placed on the agenda for tonight, so they'll have the opportunity in a little bit to speak to express their perspective on the proposal. And then we've also, since this information has gone out, we've received some additional information with regards to the proposal that I'll just highlight. We did receive a note from ATCO stating that they had no concern with it. We also received an additional comment from the representative of the Shantz Village Market Group, and I'm sure they'll address this as well in their verbal comments, but it included a bunch of pictures, and so I've emailed that to Council, so I'll just ask Council to just take a moment to look in their email. It's kind of a 4-page email with a bunch of pictures. I'll just call your attention to that, and then what I'll do is I'll read the written comments, and then you can look at the pictures while I read the written comments into the record, and then Council will also put the pictures up on the board there. Below are photos taken, so this is from Crystal Heisey, President of the Shantz Village Market Group. Below are photos taken May 7th, 2022 of a semi-tractor or a semi-trailer negotiating the turn at Highway 582 and 23rd Street coming from the west. Semi-trailer encroaching on the shoulder of the road to negotiate around southbound traffic stopped at the stop sign. Semi-trailer further negotiating the turn, southbound traffic was required back up to facilitate the semi-trailer making the turn, resulting in traffic stacking. It is our view that an entrance south of the existing entrance will be impossible for semi-trailer traffic to successfully negotiate further. The resulting traffic stacking across the secondary highway creates undue risk to the public. This is she's speaking specifically to their hope that they have to add an access point there on 20, to come into that business. I will say that additional access point isn't necessarily part of this specific land use proposal. It's that will have to be addressed with, and will be an application that they'll have to make at the development permit stage specifically, as well as to Alberta Transportation. They'll have to get approval for that added access point. So that's those comments there, along with those pictures. We also received some written comments from Bill McLean, owner of the lot in question currently, so it's from Bill and Carla McLean, who say that we fully support this proposal. We deny, and they're speaking to specifically some comments that were made in the remarks that are in your information package. They say they deny that anyone was duped. We are very excited that this company is bringing more development and business to the Didsbury area, and Dev2, the company, has been working with administration for months on this and are ready to move forward. All aspects of design and traffic have been reworked to meet any and all requirements. We can only see that more business will attract more people to Shantz Village, which will benefit all businesses. We have accepted an offer from a very, it speaks to the residential lots beside it, along that, to the east of this lot in question, those residential lots, and he says that they're working with a residential developer to develop those lots, and he makes the point that it was difficult finding someone to develop all of it, and it was easier to find a residential developer to develop the smaller portion with this block taken out and made commercial. We continue to support and champion development in the town of Didsbury and fail to see how this change of use can negatively affect our ability to attract future tenants. And then finally, we received a few comments from our economic development officer, who spoke to specifically the concern about that was raised in some of the comments about commercial and competing commercial interests, and our economic development officer just made a few comments about that commercial attracts commercial, as they like to cluster, and that with economic trends that this should not concern anyone, and will be a boon to all businesses and enhance the business vitality of the community. And those are the additional comments that we've received.
Okay. Any questions on that at this point? So I will ask if, I believe in our gallery right now, Crystal Heisey is the only participant that would like to speak. I know we have a museum manager here and our municipal bylaw officer, and perhaps our Patrick, is that, am I saying that right? Paddock. Sorry. Paddock, I don't know, did you want to speak again? I guess you have your turn later. But right now, I will ask anyone who would like to speak to indicate that. And having had Shantz Village Market Group on there, I see Crystal is here and ready to speak, so please come up to the mic. Thanks for driving to Calgary as well.
Yeah.
Maybe you were in somewhere else, but thank you.
I'm just going to speak to my comments directly. I intend to be brief. Good evening, Mayor Hunter, Council and Administration. I'm Crystal Heisey, and I am president of Shantz Village Market Limited Partnership. My presence here tonight is to express our opposition and that of our tenants to the proposed rezoning of Lot 8 from residential to commercial. This lot directly adjoins our Lot 9 development of Bilo Foods, Dollarama Pet Value, and Bob's Liquor Shop. So I put forth our rezoning concerns. You've seen them in a letter to town administration last week and followed up with photos yesterday taken on Sunday, demonstrating the existing lack of turning radius for semi-trailers at the corner of Highway 582 and 23rd Street. To keep it simple, our concerns really are twofold: rezoning and traffic safety. First and foremost, our understanding with Shantz Village Land Corporation prior to our development of Lot 9 was that lots 4 through 8 would consist exclusively of residential builds. We shared that information in recruiting our tenants. And it was key to their decision, which by the way took 2 to 3 years to make, to locate in Didsbury. It is our view that changing the zoning now flies in the face of that, and as such, our tenants are justified in their feeling of being duped by the town, by administration, and by extension, us as developers, as this change could be perceived as none of us having their best interests at heart. Further, we fully expect this proposed change in priority by the town to hinder our ability. It's not just changing residential to commercial. It's the change in priority by the town that will hinder our ability to attract national commercial tenants to Didsbury in the future. Secondly, we feel that special attention should be given to the proposed new access to Lot H, which will create a traffic stacking issue in both directions on 23rd Street. Further, as seen, there's a few more pictures here, but in order for a trailer, particularly for the proposed fuel station on Lot 8, the highway at 582 and 23rd Street corner would be impossible for even the most seasoned driver to negotiate successfully. I provided photos demonstrating that. As such, we're very concerned that this is a major traffic safety issue for both Highway 582 and 23rd Street, and have absolutely no interest in putting our brand or those of our tenants at risk. As I've expressed to this council before, I'm a firm believer that developments lacking in a broader vision and planned systematic growth risk being piecemeal, dysfunctional, and will never achieve their highest potential. I think in a small community, that point becomes further magnified. Development takes time and patience, but together with a shared vision can come to a successful reality. While I recognize the collective frustration with the time it's taken for this development to come to fruition, entertaining changes to the presiding plan has only served to delay the development overall and undermine the confidence of those already involved. I submit that in the end, if thoughtfully and methodically developed, Shantz Village will be worth it for generations. Thanks for the opportunity to share my thoughts. That's all I have.
Thanks, Crystal. Does anyone have questions for Crystal? Yeah, please, Crystal, would you take questions? Sure. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Crystal, you stated that I'm going to stumble here a little bit, so please bear with me. And that is that you stated something along the lines of that you felt that you were betrayed by the town, that the town had indicated that would remain residential. And my question is that through simply the zoning that is currently there?
I didn't state that. I said through Shantz Village Land Corporation, we were told that would be remaining residential build. So yeah, it's the rezoning. We sold the development originally to Bilo, sold the idea of the development to Bilo originally based on the idea that lots 4 through 8 would remain residential. They wanted to be in a residential location. They didn't want to be as part of a commercial development. And as I mentioned, it took 2 to 3 years for them to make that decision. So it wasn't taken lightly. To see it change now, that's what I was referencing. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Councilor Madwick?
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, I think if I heard right, the change in the bylaw is that this is essentially open. It can be industrial, it can be residential. Am I wrong in that? In the proposal we were shown, or the talk we were given, that it's now open, it's not strictly commercial, it's not strictly residential, it's open for a mixed venue variety.
That's what Chris has expressed in his presentation.
Okay, how would that, knowing that, how would that affect the opportunity you have, knowing that you can go residential or industrial, why would that be bothersome if you can develop residential areas?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay,
If I may,
Go ahead,
if
Chris.
I can address that. So what was presented was on the mixed use was with the municipal development plan. So the municipal development plan, which is the
overarching land use direction at a very high policy level, had initially identified all of that area to the north, including the existing Shantz Village, as future industrial areas. And the initial Shantz area structure plan from 2012 also identified that as a potential industrial park, and therefore the zoning within the land use bylaw was also industrial. In 2016, when the new Shantz Village area structure plan came forward, it came forward with a mix of commercial uses that were where the existing bylaw is and in the lands to the north. It came forward with the residential uses, which extends along the southern boundary, along Highway
582.
582, thank you. It shows very high density residential, which is that blue area up in the northeast. And then it had the yellow or orangish square in the middle, which was more of an institutional type of residential for different types of living styles. So what we're doing in the municipal development plan is cleaning up that area, which still says industrial. So what we want to do there is say at a high level policy perspective, what has been adopted as the Shantz Village Area Structure Plan illustrates a mix of residential and commercial uses. So we want to apply that to the municipal development plan, saying this part of this industrial area is appropriate for a mix of uses. Now within that area, we go to the more narrowly defined area structure plan and the land use bylaw to say now within this mixed use area, how are we going to mix the uses? So this subject land that we're talking about now, initially at the zoning level was saying it's going to be residential. What the proposal is to change that residential to commercial within the broader mixed use development, retaining the residential along the southern portions, retaining the higher density residential in the northeast, and retaining the institutional type of residential within the central core. So what we're saying is even though the municipal development plan still articulates industrial, it's out of date. And it's something that should have been addressed administratively when the 2016 amendment to the Shantz Village Area Structure Plan came forward. So that's more cleaning it up to just acknowledge what's already there and what is proposed to be there in the future.
I appreciate that. And just a crystal review. I remember the original plan that I saw in downtown when you had that office where you showed the plan on Shantz Crossing and the future of whether it's you or Bill, I'm not sure who. And I guess after listening to this, I'm wondering what your concerns are, considering you can develop housing, you can develop industrial, commercial, whatever you want. I don't understand your concern at this point.
The concern as I expressed it is what we quote unquote sold our tenants is not what we're delivering on. It was sold as a residential build. These tenants have signed 10, 15, 25-year leases to be in a residential area, not in amongst additional commercial. That's the concern I'm expressing on behalf of our partnership as well as our tenants this evening.
Okay, so it was your interpretation that other than the development that's there now, that the entire rest of Shantz was going to be residential?
Lots 4 through 8 would be residential.
That's not the complete Shantz.
Correct, it's not the complete Shantz development.
Right. And you still can't do that? You're not able to do that?
Councillor Bowser, if I may just interject, Crystal isn't developing the residential on that side. I think she had an interest in north of the bylaw. Your current interest is what you've done as development. I'm speaking for you here, and you can certainly correct me, but that development expected that residential to be there, and now what we're being asked to do is rezone to commercial, greater side bylaw, and take away the residential just on that corner.
Okay. I guess my question is...
So Crystal wasn't developing residential.
Right.
No.
I guess my question is why are we doing that? That'd be mine.
Why would we do what?
Why are we doing that? Why are we changing that to knock out a developer from the north side? That was the intent originally.
Because there's a developer interested in that corner, and that's what Alec was speaking to.
And further to our concerns, if what the applicant has expressed is true and commercial breeds commercial, then what's to stop the next developer or additional developers to come along and request further commercial development in that area? None of us can say.
Is that satisfied? Deputy Mayor has hand up on Councilor Coy.
I don't mean this question to be rhetorical, but under the existing designation, are we going to be required to rezone that lot residential if that's what they go to put in there? Because we have to redo the land use bylaw to put residential in there if it's under industrial at the moment?
Or MVP is.
Or MVP?
Ethan, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, like, are you speaking, like, sorry, maybe just say that again.
And maybe I'm misunderstanding something. I thought that north to southeast there was still fell under industrial designation.
In our MVP.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if we have to redesignate it to put residential in there.
No, the only thing we're doing now for the industrial piece is to just bring the municipal development plan up to speed with what the area structure plan and the land use bylaw are indicating. Now, the way we will address that within the municipal development plan is the town has already identified an area that they would deem mix of uses. So within the policy, it dictates what types of uses would be compatible within these areas, which is essentially what the Shantz Village Area Structure Plan had identified as part of the entire village concept would be residential and the commercial mix. So what we're applying to the municipal development plan is that mix of uses to just make sure that the MDP is now conforming with the documents underneath it. And the reason, so if it, from here on out, whatever happens in the Shantz ASP, the MDP will have all of that covered, unless you wanted to flip it back to industrial for whatever reason.
I don't.
Yes.
Councilor Coy?
Again, sorry through the chair. So what you're saying is that if we make it purple, which is mixed use, in the MDP, that doesn't mean we're taking away the designation of residential in the ASP. We're just saying that this area will only have commercial residential.
Yeah, so at the mixed use stage within the municipal development plan, we still, within the land use bylaw and even the area structure plan, have to provide much more specific planning on a lot by lot basis. So yes, once we've covered that once, then any rezonings in the future would deal with just the specific parcels and not the municipal development plan.
Yeah, the land use bylaw still has specific zoning for those lots, it's just that the MDP isn't getting that specific.
I just want, I guess, this question is for us. Have we seriously taken into consideration the potential that developers could bring to our town? And are we doing something that's deterring their motivation to come here by making these changes? Things seem to be fine, and now all of a sudden we're turning it upside down in order to, for what reason, I don't know. And all it's doing is potentially putting up a lot of red tape and a roadblock to any future development that was initiated possibly 2 years ago. I'm having a problem with that. It's like you don't change the rules of the game if you're losing. That's not how it works. You have to follow through with the initial promises that we made to these people.
Okay. Can I just hold you off on that just for a sec? Are there any, I just don't want Crystal to, we're asking questions to our administrative team, so is there any more questions for Crystal? So I do have one in that, and I've long thought, and I've mentioned it to many people, I think we do need one more access into Shantz Crossing. And would you agree with that? It's just the access that they're proposing, and if we were down the road to get another access into Shantz Crossing, that would that be something that you would be open to as well?
It's always
for
something
Shantz
that,
Village Market?
it's always something that we'll look at, but we need to see all of the details. And that also needs to go in front of all of our tenants as well as the stakeholders.
Thanks for that. And Councillor McCoy, did you have another question for Crystal?
No, well, maybe. I understand this, so this may be out of context, and I may have to talk to you later, but just in case. So if, let's say this development goes ahead, and I understand your concerns. Let's say the development goes ahead, then ultimately the development to the north would have to be different stores. But if you could get some sort of buy-in from the Lot 8 person, Paddock, or, that he would get approval of his resident local neighbors to bring in whatever stores, just like you've done with Bob's Liquor and all of that. Would that work, or is that still not going to work?
I'm locked out. I think the overriding concern is that this is a small community and there are a limited number of tenants that are interested, willing, able to be in a small community. So.
Thanks for that. And thanks for answering my questions and for your presentation. And now, Ethan, you were going to answer Councillor Baswick's, because I believe some of that will be answered when we get to the agenda discussion.
Yeah, and I'll just be brief, but Councillor Baswick asked essentially why are we here, and just to clarify, we're here because the town administration was approached by a developer with an idea for how to develop some commercial development on this land and to continue the growth of this area. And so we were facilitating that proposal to come to council, who ultimately makes the decision, like we would with any developer who has a proposal who would like to come and ask council to consider changing the vision slightly to accommodate a different idea. And that's all the development that we're doing here, is we're facilitating a developer that has an idea to say, council, consider this different idea on a slight change to the plan. So that's why we're here. This isn't an administration-driven thing.
Can you ask another question?
Do we have a moment where we can ask administration questions?
You can ask, anything now relative to this application and the zoning and all these amendments. The discussion on any more information that we need comes in our agenda. So if you have a question, go ahead.
So I've heard one side say that there was no agreement. I've heard the other side say that there was an agreement. To our knowledge, at any time, is this something that the town was involved in, making any sort of arrangement that there would be no commercial development there, or only residential? Is that something that the town promised? Do we know that?
Yes, so I can't speak to any previous conversations that might have happened years ago. Those conversations would have no bearing on this specifically, because land use under the Municipal Government Act, that's one thing that is a very strong part of the Act, where all land use issues are at the sole discretion of council. So council has the ability to govern what land use is, what zoning is, and to set forth that zoning, and council has the sole discretion in changing what that zoning is as council's priorities or vision or strategic plans change. Council always has the right to change what land use is. and there's no appeal, there's actually, it's so entrenched is it that the act actually ensures there's no appeals to that as well. That council, through the normal development process, there's all kinds of things that can be appealed, but matters of land use are not one of those things. And so it really is a call that council will make and have to make, but council always has the right to consider a different way of thinking about how they would like their land use to be. And that's what they're doing here, weighing the two sides and then making a call as to what they feel is right. But council's not bound by anything other than their sole discretion in deciding what land use is and how, in their vision, what is the best for the town overall with regards to the impacts of those decisions on the town as a whole.
All right, other questions right now? Otherwise, we'll have any closing comments from Development 2, Haddock. And I'm sorry, you have a question? Please come up if you have closing comments.
I just want, because I have read all of the contracts, I'd like to assure council that there's nothing in there that says anything other than what the sale of the land was about, nothing about zoning, nothing about agreement as for things that will be put on them, other than just the simple sale, which is now expired.
Yeah, so just quick minor things. From I understand from the owner of the subdivision, Bill McLean, that they actually have a sale for the residential land for the remaining piece. So that should put everybody's mind to rest, that it might get changed to more commercial. And on the traffic impact, we have actually gone to the trouble of having a proper impact assessment done on what the traffic would do. And they're very clear that it won't create issues. And we've also, during the course of our own design, we have to show the fire trucks going in and out of there, so they're quite large vehicles. And everything we design has to clearly meet those standards so that when it goes for permitting, that there will be ease of access for any vehicle that goes in and out of there. And we also believe that this is an appropriate use for a corner lot. And we've increased our setback on the east side so that whatever residential will come, there's actually quite a large gap between our development and the houses so that there is an appropriate gap there for the folks. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. Any final questions, council? Don't see any. Thank you for that. And any closing comments, Ethan, from you or Chris?
Thank you.
So I will be brief, just a couple of notes I took on a few of the questions or clarifications around the intersections coming out of the traffic impact assessment and the type 2As and the type 2Cs, and I know it's very confusing language, but what they were requiring is what the type of intersection that would be accessing into the site, and then the type of intersection that would be at the highway. And so the updates to the transportation impact assessment that was done to make Alberta Transportation agree with what the development application was going to look like, came to the conclusion that the intersection types would not change based on the original. So that the comment that came back from Alberta Transportation was to confirm that the original, I'm just going to call it a TIA because I'm tired of fumbling through the words over and over again. So the confirmation that the original TIA would maintain both the traffic flow, the traffic numbers, and the intersection requirements at time of improvement. And that was confirmed through conversation between the applicant and Alberta Transportation.
Councilor Gosmer has a question?
Just an inquiry. In the transportation study, have they indicated whether they're looking at an an extra lane turnout or a traffic circle or some other process to move traffic on that intersection?
So what they've defined is on the type 2C, I believe it is where the turn lanes would be enhanced. And then ultimately on the southern boundary along Highway 582, Alberta Transportation has a 10-meter right-of-way that extends beyond where the existing road is. So that is part of whatever their long-term requirements would be for any widening or intersection improvements at that intersection and along the highway corridor itself. So they do have the space, and it would all be dictated at whatever point in time in the future where the development has exceeded the capacity of the road widths and the intersection to manage the flow.
Councilor McCoy?
Again, back to that. So what, from their letter, what concerned me most was the thing about off-site levies and all of that conversation that they had, saying that it's going to cost us money to do those upgrades. And that's what I took out of the letter. I guess this is that for you. So my concern is when we can't keep up with the roads that we have in town, to take on a new road and have to put in $1 million or more in infrastructure, is that going to happen to us? That's the question.
I'm wondering if that's that question when we get to the agenda, and that, I have questions about all this too, but I think it's the information I'd like back about this. And it's a good question, and right, if I could, defer that to when we're discussing these second reading, that maybe there is information we need back, because it's more than just changing the MVP in the area structure plan land use bylaw. It's really what the future holds for costs associated with that as well. So maybe if that's okay with you, Councillor McCoy, we get that conversation during the bylaw. Yeah, and then I think it's information I would sort of like back in emotions. So at this point, are there any other questions to wrap up the public hearing presentation? All the information we've received? Because if there isn't, I am going to close this public hearing at, I could wait 20 seconds and say 7:30, but I'll close it at 7:29, and we'll come out of recess into our council meeting. So thanks, everyone. We have that item on our agenda. Let me get back to my agenda. Next, our Shantz development will be our bylaw discussion on item 6. And we're back in council meeting. And we will move then to item 5, item 6.1. A minute to get all my papers back in order.
And I can speak briefly if you want, Mayor, just to about the intersection issue.
Yeah, we can start with that because it's going to come up anyway, but we are on item 6 now, and by all means, just add anything you'd like.
And just briefly, so the larger issue of that intersection access, that intersection, the highway intersection, 582 and 23, that's a larger issue. That's an ongoing thing that we still will have to sort out with Alberta Transportation. We have had and will continue to have ongoing talks about that and who's responsible for what. So that will still, that's not created by this. That's an ongoing thing. Any improvements though as a result to any added access that the applicant applies for and gets approval for, and let's say they apply for an added access and AT says, well, to do that added access you need to do such and such, that would be the responsibility of the developer because that's specifically tied to something they're doing. So that would be on them, but the larger issue of the highway intersection is still kind of a larger issue the town is still working on sorting out, which we have been regardless of this development.
Councillor McCoy? Or more? I'm sorry.
So I
I would look to make the motions. And with this, the MDP, this is just changing it to what is already happening there. This isn't a controversial thing. It's not industrial, it's mixed use. So hopefully we can move this one along because it doesn't have really anything to do with the lot.
So we're on item 5.1.1,
Yes.
and Councillor Moore would
So
like.
I would move that council grant second reading to bylaw 2022-05, amending the municipal development plan.
Questions or comments? Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm going to vote in favor of this, and I think it's important, and as Councillor Moore indicated, this is just changing the MDP, which should have been done in 2016, to comply with what we're doing right now in the ASP and the land use bylaw. So I think that this, I will support this, and I hope the rest of council will support this as well.
Other questions, comments? Okay, we have motion for second reading of bylaw 2022-05, amending the municipal development plan. I'll call the vote. All in favor on second reading? That's carried.
And if I may, I move that council grant third and final reading to bylaw 2022-05, amending the municipal development plan.
Any other comments? I'll call the vote then for third reading. Amend the municipal development plan 2022-05. All in favor? It's carried. So we move on to item 5.1.2, bylaw 2022-06, the Shantz Village Area Structure Plan Amendment. Would anyone care to make the motion for second reading? Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'll move that council grant, this is second reading, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Second reading to bylaw 2022-06, the April 12th regular council meeting set hearing. Hang on. That's the wrong one.
Page 29.
Yeah. Grant second reading to bylaw 2022-06, amending the Shantz Village Area Structure Plan.
Okay, comments? Councillor McCoy?
Okay, so that now maybe it's the time. So is this going to change that piece of property to commercial?
So this specific bylaw would amend the area structure plan to turn that lot and group it in with the commercial, yes. So on this one, you're voting based on whether or not you're in favor of the proposal or not. So you would vote in favor of this bylaw if you're in favor of the proposal, and against it if you're not.
And I have a question that I should have asked to the applicant. Would anyone mind if I asked that? Because if, and it's really, again, if we designate this commercial and those accesses aren't granted by AT and all that, does that make a difference in your decision to proceed with that development? Could you mind coming up? I'm sorry, just because and I should have asked it earlier, because it might, even if this council did approve third reading, and if AT disagrees that access can be there after all the DPs are in, will the development still go ahead with the access that's there?
Well, one of our major strengths is that we do considerable due diligence. We do considerable due diligence before we get to this stage, and we've actually spent quite a bit of time with Alberta Transportation dealing with the setback on the main road to the south of us and with that access. And it was at their behest that we ended up going to do the traffic impact assessment, the update to it. And we have got actually something back from them in writing, telling us what we needed to, which we provided to them for their green light to proceed with this. So we firmly believe that Alberta Transportation are in favour of this and have no objections to it happening.
Okay, and I appreciate that answer. I have another one for, do you have one for? Yep.
So that's it for sure. You've got, like, you can move ahead.
Well, we Alberta Transportation have given us confirmation that they will not object to that new entrance where it is.
Okay, thanks for answering that. I appreciate that. And then I would have a follow-up one to our administrative team, though. Where we, and I've always thought, you know, we have to look forward, absolutely, and I'm not going to go in the past, but in our meeting with AT not long ago, or last year, you know, there was a big cost to improvements to that corner that would impact the town, and we had an argument that, you know, it's not only Shantz Crossing or Shantz Village that is creating those, that traffic increase, because there's, having the 582 there as a bypass road is creating a lot of that traffic that isn't the town's responsibility, it's the province's. So my concern, I guess, is the cost down the road to the town to have that corner improved for commercial development when perhaps the existing access is just fine, or an access from 582 instead that could be looked at as an alternative without an egress off 582, of course, but just the access. So I'm concerned about that we're not planning well enough for access and what the impact of the cost is going to be on us, or if there's an alternate option or alternative option for an access off of 582 that would be more reasonable, that we don't have the information on the cost. And I would like to see that come back about cost to the town based on that access. Is that the town's responsibility to pay for that whole improvement?
That's something we're just to speak to this, the cost and responsibility of that highway intersection. That's a conversation we're still having with AT. We've made the case to them that it isn't our responsibility because a large portion of that traffic is serving county businesses, county residents, county operations. And so we made a very persuasive case when last we met with the province that should not be a sole cost of the town, and that it should be, that Alberta Transportation should be involved in that. And so that's an ongoing conversation. But I would, administratively, I would stick very strongly to that isn't our sole responsibility due to numerous factors. So, but on the larger planning issues.
I'll just speak to your two direct comments, Mayor Hunter, around, so from a cost perspective, I think Ethan's covered that. The nature of the highway access, or the highway intersection improvements are determined through the original traffic impact assessment. And that has not changed with the new commercial proposal. So whether the applicant were to move forward with this commercial development, whether it was going to be residential in that space, that original Highway 582 intersection at 23rd Street was determined based on a build out of the entire Shantz with all of the other traffic considerations. So regardless of what they do or what happens on that corner, the nature of that intersection improvement is not going to change according to the TIA. So from a cost perspective, and as Ethan mentioned earlier, the only thing that the applicant would be doing is putting the access from 23rd Street into their site. Now that wouldn't be impacted at all by the nature of the intersection improvements at 23rd Street. And without having, speaking on behalf of Alberta Transportation now, do I feel confident, having a secondary access point off Highway 582 would largely be a non-starter from a conversation perspective. So their whole mandate is free flow of traffic and minimizing access points. So to have a secondary access, which I agree with from a planning perspective, into Shantz, the entire area, would be a benefit. Having it come off 582 is highly unlikely to be achieved with Alberta Transportation.
So just to finish that then, the applicant then is responsible to build their access in to the commercial development. And we still, when will AT ever commit that that's not our financial responsibility, that corner? I just worry that I know it has nothing to do with approving the commercial development, I get that. But if it's still coming either way, this commercial development's not gonna affect whether we pay for it or not, is, I guess, the ultimate answer. We would be responsible for that based on what AT says, then we would have to appeal for years, and then we'd have a real issue. But can you appeal to AT? You know, with success? With success? Okay.
That does answer my questions. Councilor McCoy?
Too many hands over here.
There is.
So could I suggest that if we were to do second reading tonight and then ask for more information, I would like to see the new TIA that the gentleman spoke about. I would like to see the cost of whatever they're proposing, like so just an estimate, doesn't have to be too heavy. Then would we have to, as those pictures showed us, would we need to consider widening of 23 and 582, like at that corner, particularly 23 because it's got some deep ditches and it's not very wide, right? You couldn't park on 23rd north of 582, well you can, but you're putting your life at risk. So would that, does that cover what you're concerned about? I just want to know the cost, whether they're ours or not. I just want to understand what we can do. This has nothing to do with MVP.
Yeah, we're on the area structure plan now, so I don't think there's anything wrong with asking to see, making the motion to bring that information back for council to see before third reading. I don't think it would be a, if anybody be interested in seeing that. But the initial TIA, we can, I don't think anybody's looked at that, and Chris is talking about the initial TIA again, and that's not in our, no, absolutely, the developer doesn't have to share any information with us, but if they would be willing, or if they'd see the upgrade from the original TIA, but Chris is speaking about the original TIA. And it doesn't, if council wants the information, then if Councilor McCoy makes that motion, then we'll vote on it. Did you have something? Did you want to answer first, Chris, and then?
Yeah, I'll just address that. I think the point that the applicant is making is that there's no required changes to the initial TIA. So what was proposed as part of the initial impact assessment for the entire Shantz Village Area Structure Plan, the proposed development is not creating any significant impact beyond what was originally identified to the point that would require anything beyond what was originally planned. So back to what Alberta Transportation has authority of, and beyond the access point, because of the proximity to the highway, we could, as the town, we could make the approval of the development permit that they could overturn because they will have ultimate authority because it requires a roadside development permit. So whatever we do in terms of land use changes and whatever the applicant does in terms of development approval, Alberta Transportation will have the ultimate say on whatever goes in there, and that is whether it's commercial, residential, industrial, regardless. So The point I guess I'm trying to make in terms of more information, it's absolutely your purview to request more information. I would just want clarity of what you want that information, or what type of information you want, and how that's going to assist you in the decision for the land use, knowing that ultimately the development permit and the transportation impacts and the access points will be determined in coordination with Alberta transportation requirements.
Okay, Councillor, do you have a question? Councillor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. It's not necessarily a question. I'm going to make a comment about the motion. And I feel like I'm kind of between a rock and a hard spot here. That if I don't support this application or the changes in the bylaw, then essentially I'm saying, and it would appear that I'm saying that I'm not in favor of development. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. At the same time, I'm also a firm believer in long-term planning. And I think that the way that that zoning has been for the last, it's 6 years now, indicating kind of an unofficial commitment to the tenants that have developed there, that this was going to be residential, and changing it in midstream, I think, is a bit of an injustice. And so I'm torn. I'm between a rock and a hard spot here. I think that long-term planning is critical. I think that we need to respect what we've done before and what has been done before, and yeah, I think that it's a very awkward and difficult decision that we're faced with.
Councillor McCoy?
Just, I guess, that to me, Chris, there's also the matter of principle. And I just feel like I'm kind of torn. I would like to see if there is anything from the town when they committed to all of that being residential. Like if there was, like, I don't want to cut off our nose to spite our face. If you get what I'm saying, right? If we destroy the relationship that we have with ILO and Dollarama and the rest of them, and possibly maybe as well as Shantz Village, and then even Paddocks. Like, I think I just want to have some time to go through it better, and I want to see the TIA from 2012, and I would like to see the new one to see that it actually states the cost of A to Z. That would help me. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? I would like to suggest that we certainly can vote on second reading and get anything back that you say. We met with AT as well. We haven't received any answer. Maybe you have, but council hasn't heard an update on that. So even if it's just that information, any follow-up that has happened on that corner, and anything that they have to date that would put people's minds at ease and have all the information in front of us. And I know the commercial development can be approved, but it is the long-term planning, it is the big picture of what the town's committing to hopefully help everybody be satisfied in this situation and continue on with Shantz Village development.
We could, we're happy to speak preliminarily about, we could even speak to what that's going to look like. That Craig's done some preliminary work on that. He could speak to that. We can bring that back and have a bit of a presentation on what that intersection and what's going to be entailed in that, and estimated costs. And we've done some of that preliminary legwork. The one thought, though, is that's all going to have to happen separate from this, whether this is approved or isn't approved, that all has to happen. And so my only advice is that maybe you separate that and that you vote on this based on whether you're in favor of this or not. You've heard some compelling cases both in favor and against, and that you, but keep in mind that you're not voting on whether or not that intersection is going to be an issue or not, because that's going to be an intersection. That's going to be an issue no matter what happens. So maybe we separate that as a separate issue, and then you could address this based on the planning merits or not, of whether or not you're in favor of this going in this direction.
Go ahead.
So I agree with Councillor Windsor about being perplexed about this. Obviously, I'm always in favor of development. I guess what I'm struggling with is why the existing businesses would be against another section of commercial. I understand they want to be amongst residential. Pittsburgh's not a very big town, everything is residential. And we're not, there's other lots in there that could be residential. I agree. We weren't part of, I don't believe, whatever commitments were made. And I don't think that we should be. And although I'm very perplexed, I am probably leaning more towards approval.
Will we scale it back to the motions at hand? And I understand what you're saying, Ethan, to separate these out because they're not really related per se. They are related in the big picture in the future, but either way, the answer is the same from AT. As whether this is residential or commercial, it's still the same answer from AT is what I'm hearing. So if everybody here is for development, I know that. We've had that conversation many times, and everybody's waited for 12 or 14 years now to see Shantz developed out, and that's one thing that this council's, in the past council, is going to be successful with. So we can have the motion. Did we make the motion? Or second? Because there's so much. So Councillor Windsor's made the motion. I think I wrote that down. And we can vote on that right now. After Councillor McCoy has her comment.
It's just one more question. So my issue is the principle of all of this and the structure and the commitment that the town made, whether it's in writing or not, back in 2016. And I don't want to burn any bridges with any developer, including both the developers that are sitting in the stands, right? So I'm just curious, like, would the new developer be willing to commit to working with the current businesses there to ensure that they're okay with the new businesses that come in? I don't, do you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that's the solution, but it's not the plan itself that's bothering me. It's that we're maybe breaking our own principle somehow.
Well, we wouldn't be because we didn't create that.
No,
that
still take responsibility.
deal.
It's just like every council.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Councillor Baswick and then Councillor Windsor. And I think we can call the vote after two more comments, and then Ethan, you can speak after two councillors.
I think the problem I have with this is that what makes an individual is their word. And if we have given our word, whether it's this councillor or a previous council, and developers or entrepreneurs have followed that line, and with the faith that they were going to get support from the council, whoever was in office, and to renege on that would be very disappointing to me. I don't work that way. If I say something, that's going to happen, and I won't back around. I won't change my mind. That's the way it's going to be. And I think that as a councillor or administration, whoever, I can't speak for administration, but there has to be some value in what we presented to these developers originally, you know. And I sort of agree with Councillor McCoy and the fact that if you did the whole place residential, and then you do an inquiry to see, hey, do you want a strip mall over here? That type of thing that we do normally anyway. So there are compromises, but I won't compromise on a word given by a government body. There's too much of that going on. Thank you.
Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a clarification, if this motion is defeated, is that the end of the proposal? And does that preclude the other two items on the agenda? The land use bylaw as well as the disposal of the municipal reserve?
Yes, if this motion is defeated, it's basically saying no to the proposal.
Councilor Moore?
I have a real problem when something finally moves ahead. Please remember that this land is not ours, and it hasn't been ours for a long time. And this is an agreement between developers that have worked together all along and has nothing to do with us or anything that we said. This is us turning down a developer that wants to do something. Why would we do that? What kind of a signal would that give to the rest of the developers? This is not something that we should do. We should go ahead with this. Alberta Transportation will decide with all of the things that you're asking about. They are going to determine all the things that you want to know and that you're asking about. It's not our job. Alberta Transportation will make sure that all of those regulations and things that are abided by, that access will be right or it won't be there, because that's their business. And we have absolutely no control over that, and they will do whatever kind of lane off they're going to do, whether this goes ahead or not. And so all you're doing is turning down a legitimate developer that wants to do something else on there after waiting for so many years. We don't have a deal on the rest of the land anymore, and it is important for us to do something with what we have. I ask you, please don't turn down the one thing that's happening.
Did you, you know, I was going to stop it here and then let that, and I'm not, this is the last one and I'm calling the vote on the second reading. And I think Ethan had a comment in there, but
I just wanted to suggest that we pass second reading and that we ask for more information, and at the next meeting pass third reading. And that doesn't defeat it all. It moves us forward, and maybe part of it is like reading an email from the owner of the property and talking to the developer, and they're not in the same room, right? And talking to the Shantz Village Corporation, which my understanding was Bill was part of. I guess I just want to understand all that. Similar to what Councillor Bastick said, for me, it's a moral thing.
And I'm going to call the vote, but with one last comment that I think the administration's been clear that there's two separate issues about AT, and we know that we have to deal with that one. We have been dealing with Shantz for a long time, and it's good news stories when you see developers want to come to your community. And it is a tough decision, but I want to be known as a council that has an open door policy and will work with developers, and developers can work together on what we hope is a very successful Shantz Village area, piece of land. So I will also ask, I'll ask for the vote on the second reading right now, and then I will ask for a motion on the third reading, because information on their structure plan being redesignated, we can discuss at that time. And it's another issue. So we are talking about their structure plan, identifying a commercial area on the corner. So go ahead, and then I'm going to call the vote.
Yes, sorry, Mayor, Chris just had.
Just the final.
Yeah, no,
Just the final comment, I hope that will be brief. And just something I would like to address with regards to the comments that have been brought up around a potential agreement in place, or a potential, whatever the terminology would be, that would give some certainty in the future of land use. And I think first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that any such agreement, beyond what would be put into place within a statutory document or a land use bylaw, would essentially be a contravention of the Municipal Government Act. So to bring that into light would be to suggest that something contravening to the act had been done prior, and I'm not suggesting it was or was not. I just want to bring that forward, that if we were to go find some form of agreement, that I don't believe that there would be anything that would exist beyond what had been outlined within an area structure plan and land use bylaw, which does represent long-term planning. What I would also like to acknowledge is that individual landowners have the opportunity to come before council and suggest changes to the long-term planning from time to time, which clearly happened in 2016 when there was a suggestion to change from the industrial use in the previous ASP to what is currently presided in the Shantz Village ASP. So I just want to be clear that the likelihood of some form of agreement outside of the specific plans would not be under the legal requirements of the town through the act, and this is essentially the landowner coming forward through the new potential developer to request a change. So that's the only comment on that.
And I might suggest that there'll be many more changes to that area going forward. We don't know that. But we have a motion on the table for second reading, and I will call the vote. All in favor, second reading? Opposed? Okay, second reading is carried. And I guess we can have third reading, but I'd like to know that everybody's comfortable going to third reading, because if you need some time to think about it, and the only information I believe that you really need back about this is not about the corner. I think the corner's been beaten to death, and we know that the highway and the 23rd Street are not relative to our decision on changing an area structure plan. If everybody is ready to proceed to third reading, or if you'd like specific information, or else you just want time to think about it, that's fine. But if you want information back, please specify what information it is before we go to third reading, or we can just leave it at second reading tonight and bring third reading back. So I don't want to see Councillor Moore? The defeat of a third reading would defeat everything going forward on our agenda.
Just wondering about if we do third and final reading and it fails, and people just want more information, it can come back then, right?
I think they need to make a motion for whatever
No.
information you want back.
So just to clarify, according to section 188 of the Municipal Government Act, if a bylaw is defeated on second or third reading, it rescinds all previous readings.
So a motion to bring something back that helps you make your decision for third reading, or I am not going to call the vote unless I know it. That's not really probably.
Can't do that.
No, I understand once the motion's made. Yeah, we have to vote on it.
Vote is language is going, you can't do that.
I understand that, Councillor Bazard. I just don't want to, if people need time to think about it, I want to give them that time. I know.
No.
Yeah. Councillor Windsor?
If I may, Mayor Hunter, just to make a comment, and this is to maybe directed at what Chris clarified there. Certainly there probably isn't an agreement of any kind, and whether there is kind of irrelevant and whatever, except that I think that what the zoning is an indication of a commitment, a long-term commitment to everybody, not just the developers, not just business owners, it's to the residents, it's to everybody. It's That's what the zoning is all about, to make out a plan as to what we are planning for this area and where it's going. And I understand that we can change that. I get that. But my problem here is at what cost are we doing that?
So I would suggest that we bring the third reading back to the next meeting. And have our administrative team search for anything which isn't, I don't believe it would be there because Chris has been very clear, we wouldn't contravene the MGA, and I think these are issues that, I think it's more of an issue for people to think about at this point, and bring back third reading for the next meeting. And we did a second reading. Everybody's comfortable with that? Is there any information you want back to make a motion before we proceed to the land use bylaw?
I can't really do that, then.
We need a second reading on those two. Or we,
You said not the TIA, right? Do you want to see the TIA?
well, that's
It's
all
not
other
pertinent
issues.
to the
It's not
decision.
relevant to the commercial.
But in a separate motion, I would like to see the old one, just so I understand the future plans of the town and
I think
for
maybe-
transportation.
Information that you have to date from AT would be beneficial next meeting, but that's totally on a different,
Yeah, maybe we could discuss
Discussion.
it during the CEO report.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay. All right, so we can move to item 5.1.3, do second reading on land use bylaw.
Can I just ask a question? Clarity? Are they waiting to break ground? Are they ready to move forward? Is 2 weeks going to negatively impact them?
all of these redesignations are so that we can get development permits. There's no development permits in place yet. That would enable them to submit their development permits. Is that
Yeah, they are waiting for this process to go. Obviously, like all developers, at the same time, process has to go at the speed that council's comfortable going. So it's yes, they are, but council does have a role to play in the process they follow.
Would you like a motion on the land use bylaw?
Yep, please.
I move that council grant second reading to bylaw 2022-07, amending the land use bylaw.
All right, any
comments or discussion on that? Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm not going to reiterate the same things I said. Could we have clarification on exactly what this means? Essentially that this is rezoning that lot 8, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, correct. So this would be to rezone that corner lot from residential to commercial.
Okay. Second reading for tonight, and then I would suggest that I think that we'll bring back the third reading on the respective times next week. So I will call it
Any comments or questions on the land use bylaw? Call the vote. All in favor on second reading? Opposed? That's carried.
Mayor Hunter, I'm thinking that the disposal of the MR is just like a one thing, so we should leave that for the next meeting.
Would you agree with that, Ethan? That can wait. We'll ask our experts. Thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, it really is something that if the other things don't pass, there's no point in doing this.
So then we Well, I think to accept this information, that it was on the agenda.
Table it.
I'll move that council accept the disposal of lot 7 MR in Shantz Village as information.
Yeah,
It will come back.
yes. All right, I'll call the vote on that. All in favor? That's carried. All right. So we move on to our business. I think that was a lot of business too, but I guess bylaw business versus this business, so.
Can I make the next motion?
Sure.
Yes, I am. I move that council move to approve the attraction and retention of veterinarians to rural veterinarian practice resolution to be submitted to the Alberta Municipalities 2022 Fall Convention.
Comments or questions? We do have the City of Brooks is seconding that now. So I believe everybody's sheet has cameras on it right now, but the City of Brooks, and I don't even think we have to address that. We just get that seconder and we'll have Luana submit that when she gets back to work. Okay, so I will call the vote on that. All in favor? Thanks, everyone. That's carried. Okay, and then we have, I'm just, give me 1 second, my papers got lost. So they're right. Okay.
The next motion?
Yes, I just found my sheet that I'm making notes on, but yes, go ahead.
I move that council appoint Brody Kazakis as new member to the Didsbury Economic Development Advisory Committee.
Comments or questions? Call the vote, all in favor? And thanks to Bodie for stepping up. That's great to see a student get on that committee after so long. And we have letter of support for Culture Days. Deputy Mayor.
I move the council approve the letter of support from Mayor Hunter on behalf of council supporting the Didsbury and District Chamber of Commerce in their application for the Alberta Cultural Days grant.
Okay, any comments, questions? I'll go with Councillor Williams and then Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, is this a matching grant? With the town match?
No, we don't have any financial obligation with the support. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I've got mixed emotions about this in that I'm in favor of bringing any money to the community. I mean, any money that we can get in terms of a grant, bring it to the community, that's a good thing. On the other hand, I'm not sure where this is the Chamber's role to do something like this. I don't understand exactly. First of all, I'm not sure about their manpower, and the information that they provide here isn't very, very much detailed. So I'm a little torn on this one.
Any other comments? Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor? Vote in favor? That's carried. Thanks. 2022 operating budget, draft 4. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'll move that council approve the 2022 operating budget as presented with estimated revenues totaling $12,097,450 and estimated expenses totaling the same number with revenues from taxes being $4,923,996 period.
the reason that you,
It's irrelevant.
okay. Yep. That's fine, you made the motion. If someone wants you to amend it back to that. Is there any discussion or comments on this? Councillor Moore?
I'd just like to point out with all of the people with their hair on fire about the amount over the COVID budgets, that Carstairs 2022 budget is 8.915% higher than their 2019. Ours is 1.798% higher. Olds is 6.170% higher. And what we have done is nowhere near what inflation is, and so we are cutting back on things by doing this. So all of the comments about our neighbors are incorrect. COVID budgets had nothing to do with anything. I will vote for this, but I am disappointed.
Other comments, questions? Councillor Williams, and then Councillor McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just from page 48 to page 50, the comments. Maybe for next year, I would like the comments to be shared with the council in real time as soon as they happen. That would give us a better idea of what the citizens are feeling.
Thanks for that. Make note of that.
Yeah, and just for everyone's, they have been shared previously to council. We just put them all together in this.
I have to say that I looked for them in that package. You said they were there, and they weren't. And I was actually going to ask about that, and I didn't. So there was an indication that they were shared with us, but we didn't.
Well, maybe we think we shared them, maybe we didn't. So maybe that's where the disconnect
I
came.
kept scrolling to see where they were, and they weren't there.
But you're very thorough, so I'm okay, because I know we did think we sent them out. So
thank you for that. So that's good if you could note that. I think everybody agrees.
Absolutely, and maybe what we'll do next year is, as they come in, we'll just have Sarah send them out, and what we'll put the community relations email as the one to make the comment, so that as soon as they come, they just go straight to council.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you. Councillor McCoy?
I'm getting better at turning it on now, I just have to get better at turning it on. Councillor, professional development, based on further reviews of plans. A few meetings ago, Mayor, I asked for a list of expenditures today for council professional development. And isn't that so? When you look farther into the document, they've included travel and everything, whereas our budget of whatever it was, 35,000 or whatever, is that what the budget still is now? What is the total budget for PD for council without travel? Just because you approved it based on without travel, and now you're reflecting it in a year with travel. So I don't know if it's the same amount of money or not.
I'll have Amanda speak to that.
Are you bringing up the sheet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Kelsey's putting that.
Okay.
No, that document's not in here. But I recall council approving the budget allocations without AUMA. But the allocations that were approved included travel, so I just don't quite understand the question.
The allowances counts for travel. Your travel has to be within your allowance.
I understand that, but what I'm confused about is I'm unable to tell from that one line how much is being spent on registration, how much is being spent on travel, and what the total budget per councillor is. Like you can't tell from that. What we approved is not the same as what you're reflecting in this document. I'm just confused.
No, because we need to include the cost of AUMA. So I can send you out my most updated version of council's PD plans based on attending AUMA and other information, but it still involves an estimate because
I thought we had decided that everyone got $4,500 and 6,500, and that was it. So
Well-
why are we adding back in AUMA?
Well,
Well,
because,
we still have to pay for it.
so the council policy, the professional development policy, says that council sets an allowance for council, but that doesn't include AUMA as an automatic. And what we did was we just put an estimate based on who we thought would probably most likely be going to AUMA. We put a little extra there to cover that. But that's in the policy itself. The policy says that you set an allowance, but that AUMA is bonus on top of that.
Okay, that's not how I interpreted the policy, but I did bring that up last time. But is it coming to policy and governance for review? Is that? No. I would like it to. Because of my interpretation of the AUMA statement is that there used to be a debate about the value of everyone going, right? And that's why that statement was in there, more so than that above and beyond your expenses, you could go to AUMA. So that's all I'm questioning. So I'm just not sure what our final budget changed with AUMA. So if you could send that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I could even read the clip from the policy right now if that would help.
Yeah, and I think if you want something, Councilor, we're going to make a motion on that. But, and be clear as to what you're after. But go ahead, Ethan.
Okay, so this is from Council Policy 00121.
Want to turn your mic on, Ethan?
Oh, I apologize.
Your name's not.
This is for John. Sorry. The annual Alberta Urban Municipalities Association Convention event is identified as the premier event for council members and the professional development, and all council members, where possible, are strongly encouraged to attend. Funds will be included in the budget to allow all council members to attend. In addition to AUMA, in setting their annual budget, council will set aside funds for professional development, and each member will be afforded an allowance for the year for the undertaking of professional development opportunities.
Thank you. That has changed substantially from my memory. I don't know. Do we have a motion on the table? Yes. Because I would like a motion that.
Well, we have a motion for the budget right now, and you can make that after this.
Yeah, I want to make a motion about bringing back professional development.
Yeah, so
Costs.
There is a motion on the 2022 operating budget that's been made. And I would only, and maybe I'll make it next, or ask someone to make it next meeting, because I really, getting back onto the 3-year plan, and I want everybody to keep that in their minds, that I think we can do better and have a 3-year plan and not 8 meetings. And that we really keep that in our minds after the motion to pass all the tax rates and whatnot, and then we'll make another motion just so we set ourselves on the right path as to where we, and I know Ethan's talked about too, that they're thinking the same way, so maybe we can make a, good motion that's effective for council and administration to set some processes and timelines. But having said that, we have a motion to approve the 2022 operating budget as presented. And no other comments, questions? I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And then we can move on to item, actually Councillor McCoy has a motion.
Oh, right. I don't know, Mayor, would you prefer if I make the motion to have the policy go to the Policy and Governance Committee, or do you want the motion to be that the budget and expenses for council professional development be brought back to council for presentation, and then we decide if we need to go?
Well, sorry, Mayor, maybe this will help. So there was a previous motion to have that brought back, and that will be brought back. So Luann has put that together, just that'll be brought back to the next meeting already. So that's already going to come back.
That's all I need.
You're talking the year to date for the professional development?
Yeah, but also now I want the budgets for everybody.
Yeah, we can include that in
Yeah, just that little PD form we've.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I haven't said that on that conversation too. I think, Ethan, we've talked about, you know, the posting of council expenses and how we're going to do that. And I think maybe that will be tie that all together because, you know, there are good ways to post that and have information for everybody. We don't have to keep bringing it up here because you can just look online. But we have discussed it.
That's a good point, and maybe what will tie into that when we bring that back is a piece that council can have a conversation and then set direction for the way they would like that reflected on.
Okay, let's do that. So we have item
741.
Yeah, 7.41. I know there's not numbered on the page now.
Oh, that's page 51. Could I make a motion?
Yeah.
I move that council grant second reading to tax rate bylaw 2022-08.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Windsor?
Friendly amendment as presented.
That's not on here, why?
Well, because otherwise it gives no context.
Okay, as presented.
Okay, friendly amendment. Councillor Moore made it. Councillor McCoy?
Just a couple of quick questions. You're adding back in vacant residential and vacant non-residential? Is that why it's in red? So it must have been removed and it's been added back in? Am I correct?
Oh,
Under page 53, part 2, number 4, 41C, 41B.
Yes, we are. The definitions weren't there previously, so we're just defining them.
Okay, and my other question is and I'm sure you told us this before, minimum amount payable per tax roll, and it says $60. What was that previous?
It was $50 previous.
Thank you.
and I can, just on a vacant non-residential and residential, that was much higher than our residential and non-residential, so this past council agreed to just bring it back to the same rate as residential and non-residential, and maybe that's where it just got taken off for not being identified, but it was never meant to really go away. It was just meant to be the same as residential and non-residential tax rate.
Yes, and I can speak to that. Technically, it wasn't needed in there previously because all of the residential rates were the same and all of the non-residential rates were the same. So they weren't subclasses with different rates. But if you read my RFD, I'm saying there is an option that council could group vacant residential with a non-residential, so it would have a different rate.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the thought behind that is usually it's like a developer that owns the vacant residential, so it's a business looking to make money. So
You're encouraging.
so it's kind of like the non-residential, any other business at that rate. So that's the option that's in front of you. And so it would add more to the non-residential class in a sense and lower the mill rates.
But we just took that away. So I would
Well-
certainly speak against that next week because we did just take that away for the reason that there is no such thing as a speculator anymore. They buy land and they develop it, or they try. So that's, if we want that,
I like you.
Yes, just to clarify, what you removed was the excessive extra rate where it was like 40 times. It still has to have some rate, and Amanda's just proposing that instead of being a residential, it'd be part of the non-res grouping. That's all, but she's not proposing that it have that same huge rate that it had previous. But it has to go in one of the two groupings.
But it can't be at the same rate, so that would be set.
Yeah, so she's just
We can speak to
proposing,
that next week.
yeah, that it just be the same as non-grants, every other non-grants.
Yeah. Okay. It's just, we just went through that for a few years, so I don't want to go backwards, but that's the one that we have. Second reading, effective by law 2022, as presented. Any other comments? Call vote on
Favor. Let's turn my mic on.
You can
Multitasking.
the whole there for a second.
Yeah.
Stop by her,
Okay.
put her shoulder.
So now we have the CAO report. The CAO report, Ethan, do you have anything to add to what is in the text?
Yes, thank you. I do have a few different verbals. Do you want me to proceed with that and then
Please,
general
yeah.
questions about everything? Okay. So we'll start with Craig, who will do just. Sorry, for Craig, we'll have our bylaw enforcement officer, Lucas, who will come and just give a brief overview of our new parking awareness campaign. And thank you, Lucas, for coming and sitting and
Absolutely.
to do this.
It's my pleasure. It's informative.
And boy, you look sharp in this equipment.
Thanks. It's new. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here again. And for those who don't know me, my name is Lucas Ron. For those who don't know me, my name is Lucas Ron. I'm one of the community peace officers in town, and I've been asked to come here just to speak a little about our parking enforcement initiative, specifically the bylaw 2006-16. For quite some time now, it has not been enforced. And so if you have walked down 20th Street for any amount of time lately, you'd notice that there's vehicles that are being parked there contrary to the bylaw. So they've been there longer than 2 hours. And so please know that for the coming months, we'll be increasing parking enforcement in those locations that are designated as 2-hour parking zones with an emphasis on education. Please know that these zones are located on 20th Street, so that's from 15th Avenue all the way to 21st Avenue. 18th Ave, so it's approximately 250 meters to the west, approximately where Dr. Verveek's old office used to be. 19th Ave all the way down to 21st Street, and as well as 20th Ave just past the post office. So for business owners and residents alike, I would just ask if you are planning to be parked for more than 2 hours at any of those locations, that you try to seek other parking alternatives where it's not the 2-hour parking zoning. And when you are parking downtown, please be mindful of the signage. The signage is pretty well designated and marked, and the signs do say from 800 hours to 1800 hours, Monday to Friday. It is a 2-hour parking zone. And that's all I have.
questions or comments? Councilor McCoy.
I have a question. So, would there be a benefit of extending the 2-hour parking to 22nd or even 23rd because of the dental office, the massage clinic, and the new big complex going in?
That is a good question. So far, I haven't seen, even just past Checker, where Checker is currently located, because that's where it currently ends, I haven't seen a great demand for parking. However, as more things develop, the bylaw, of course, would have to be reviewed and looked at to see if we want to increase that. Likewise, the bylaw is a little bit behind. If you do go onto the website, onto the bylaw page, and then select the 2006-16 bylaw, you'll see it's marked in red where all the zoning is for the 2-hour parking. And it doesn't accurately reflect what is in terms of signage downtown. So it actually now extends all the way down to where the new development is towards Hi-Ho. So that would be the Pizza 73, there's a liquor store, cannabis store, and the laundromat there. So those are also affected. It's just not reflected in the bylaw itself, but the signage is there. So I guess it would be reconsidered, especially if it is a concern, and then also it would have to be reviewed with the bylaw itself.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. So, if our bylaw isn't in concert with the signage, then either the signage is wrong, or we need to update the bylaw.
That's correct. I believe there is plans to update the bylaw to make it congruent with the signage. And that's because it hasn't been enforced for so long. I think it was pretty well a moot point. But however, because we are starting this initiative, that will have to be reviewed. And then to remediate that in the near future, it'll just be an education first approach. So we don't have any conflicts with people receiving tickets and that the bylaw and the signage isn't congruent with each other.
When we had this in effect before, basically the problem was business owners parking in front of somebody else's business and staying there all day. And of course, lately we've got somebody that likes to park 7 vehicles somewhere downtown and just leave them there. But one of the legitimate questions that we had from people that came from outside the community that weren't parking like all day in front of somebody, sometimes when they came here and they had lunch and they went shopping for a bit, that sometimes the 2-hour limit didn't seem like long enough. And we didn't want to give tickets to the people that were visiting and shopping here. So I would appreciate if people are saying it's not long enough, that maybe that feedback would be important. Because what we really don't want to have happen is what still happens, is people park in front of somebody else's business and just leave their car there. So just if it seems to be the right amount of time, if you could let us know.
Absolutely. And I'll get some of that feedback back when I do issue a warning or just talk to someone regarding the bylaw. And so I'll take all of that in. I always record every interaction I have in my notes, and I can forward that on to my supervisor as well.
I'm interested in the feedback you're getting right now, because I've got some.
Okay. I'd like to hear if you have it.
I'd like to hear yours first.
So far, what I have found is so I've done it once now where I've just gone along. So we do it old school, we just chalk a tire, and then of course once a 2-hour time span has occurred, go back, monitor, and just make sure that no vehicles are left. However, last time I did it, I had about 7 or 8 vehicles that were in contravention of the bylaw, staying there for more than 2 hours. And they were business owners. Typically it was in front of their own business. However, that's still contravening the bylaw because it is taking parking spots that would otherwise be vacant for shoppers away from that.
And some of that, I'm going to finish this and then before that. Because with our residential above retail, that's some of the feedback. Some of the feedback, and this is a council problem, not a you problem. Council supported municipal enforcement priorities, and I'm just wondering, I know Councilman Moore brought up before, I'm just wondering if council needs to revisit that and look at a longer time that would be reasonable, because there is some really, business owners find it hard to tell their shoppers that, oh gee, it's like you've been there 2 hours, you gotta go. And this guy that's mean, Lucas Ronga down the road from and we don't know you're not mean, but but I guess the conversation with council I'd like to have is about an extended period of time. And I'd also like to have the conversation that have we picked the wrong priority for this year? Because like what started this priority, and I'm hearing way more issues on speeding and U-turns in the middle of the road and safety issues that municipal enforcement and RCM people look after rather than cars parked too long. And I understand the value of cars parked. I get that value, but safety issues seem to be more of a priority to me that I should be looking to council that I think think we should maybe take a look at those sorts of issues and send this back to the Policy and Governance Committee. Now, I was going to say, Policy and Governance Committee needs to get to work. There's some things piling up here, so I haven't said that. So that's, go ahead
Well,
and
now that you guys
respond to
passed
that.
your budget.
Go ahead and respond to that, Lucas.
Just in regards to the tenants that live above some of these shops and things like that. Just a question for you guys. Is it often when a landlord rents some of these properties, make parking spaces available for them in the back? Because that's one of the alternatives that I've suggested. Or just parking further down on one of the streets that don't have the parking restriction. But I was just wondering what has been in place previously.
Yeah, and I think that certainly needs to be addressed, that very question. And they're thinking of some good solutions that I think they're going to give to you, and you can probably put those in your report when you come back. But we also made a motion to record nuisance behaviors downtown, which deters people from parking in the alley overnight. So that's another issue that this council has to look at as well. So, thank you for all your work on that. I know, there's good feedback about how pleasant you are and how well you handle that. So that's really good. But I think the council needs to consider this as do we need to extend it to help our downtown core, or maybe we can. Your reports appreciated. Deputy Mayor Abel and then Councilor McCoy.
I guess this would be a bit of an operational question. So let's say I have a bad hip and I go sit in the restaurant for an hour and 45 minutes and you chalk my wheel and I get out of my car because I can't walk to the drugstore. I back up and I move over 15 spots and my wheel is chalked. Now I've moved. Am I still in violation?
No.
How do you
No,
know
as long
that?
as the vehicle moves. So how the chalking of the tire works is I have chose a suitable enough chalk where if I chalk the upper portion of the tire, so any movement and abrasion against that tire wipes that chalk away.
Okay.
And nothing stopping someone from wiping it off. Although wiping the chalk off someone else's tire is an offense. But like if you have made an effort to move the vehicle, so like say if you moved at one spot and noticed that the chalk wasn't sufficiently gone, of course. Mm-hmm.
The 2-hour problem used to be enforced all the time, and what I find is it's a sense of entitlement of some people that feel that they should be able to just park very close to the front of their store. And this is a business district, not a business customer client or store client parking lot. And I brought it up a long time ago because with the Friends of the Library being open on the odd Fridays, you cannot find parking downtown. And there's seniors going down the back alley and around and down and around and down looking for parking because there's people that are staying too long. I get it that you might want to go 2 hours, but I sent a picture to Ethan earlier today that I took on Saturday because they had all the roads shut down up until 21st. And 21st is the perfect longer stay parking. Most of the houses don't face 21st Street, they face the avenues.
The road was closed, so.
No, what I'm saying that people were parked all along there. And so you park there, or even at the fire hall if it's not being used or whatever, and you walk to your business. You can't expect to walk or to park and walk in. And what Councilor Moore says really annoyingly true. The people, the worst offenders, don't park in front of their own store. They park in front of someone else's. And it's just so not right. And as
So
far as
we have a motion, though, to send this to the Policy and Governance Committee, because I don't think we should debate that right now. We're getting the report. And I think it does deserve, so after this here report is accepted, we'll take that motion to send it to Policy and Governance and review this, because Lucas is just here to give us a report.
And,
Thank you.
And just to add to Lucas's report, this is all part of, again, that council priority of enhancing the downtown vitality and the well-being of our downtown core. But what I was also hoping from this little update too is gauge a bit of council feeling or input as to what they feel about that 2-hour program, and whether or not, if you want to keep it as an educational thing until bylaws are reviewed and updated, or like if there's, so give some thought to if there is specific direction you want to give or not, so on that. So thank you, Lucas.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a safe and pleasant evening.
Thanks, Lucas. And I think maybe a motion might come out of this too, we'd like the feedback back, and maybe as part of the education component, the motion could be that bring back the feedback that you're getting and any solutions or thoughts from our people downtown who have good solutions and good ideas. So I'd like the feedback, the solutions, and your report. That's what I think a good motion would be for council to see.
For the amendment, could it also include, if the suggestion is coming from someone who's found parking for too long in front of someone's
It's been
door?
ticketed. Yeah, when somebody will make that motion.
And maybe you want to do that now while Lucas is here.
Yeah, we can. So,
I can make both the motions now.
sure.
So that, that council refer the bylaw to policy and governance committee. And you want the whole thing in it?
No, we can.
Or it would be a separate.
Yeah, I think we
What
can
about
forward to
continuing
separate.
the education program? I think we're asking whether we wanted to.
For now,
Well, you should
Until we
continue to
do
get that
a
feedback.
review.
In terms of a timeline, when would you like the report to be given back?
So we're gonna, they're kind of probably out of order, but it doesn't matter. So we'll get the bylaw sent to the policy and governance committee with that motion, and the next motion will encompass the timeline and the information like that. So let's vote on the bylaw, go on policy and governance first. All in favor? And then the next motion will outline to continue to compile like a really thick binder full of information like this.
Absolutely.
And who you've talked to, who you've ticketed, and their feedback, any solutions or proposals they might have.
Well, we can't.
It's a FOIP issue.
We
Yeah,
can't
no,
say
we're-
we take
we're in tickets.
We read it on Facebook, we had them arrested and they have face down on the pavement.
What do you would like to
Yeah,
call
well, there
this,
it is.
reminder visits? I don't know what to call them.
warning,
We have with their person.
To learn.
gentle reminders.
What do you call them?
Oh, I just do a municipal enforcement warning.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so did you get that motion? Are you making it? Or Councilor Cortez?
No, I just wanted to just mention that probably the most frustrating place is the post office. You when people sit in their cars and read their mail.
For 2 hours.
No, but that's at 15-minute parking area.
Yeah, but it's not 15 minutes.
You know, their watch is slow.
I wasn't paranoid enough to ask you.
Can we, if you sit there with your blinker on waiting through my spot, I take longer.
Just at a cost.
But you want, just
Okay, I'll make that second motion.
It's not gender affected either, it's not everybody.
That, what do we want, for once a month or something? Or in the CAO's report?
I like it,
We can just bring it back, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, like that it will, the stats be included, or suggestions be included in the CAO's report.
Stats and feedback.
the information gathered, solutions, feedback.
Result.
Yeah. Because now you have something to do.
Exactly.
You're a board report tonight.
Thank you.
Always saying that.
Okay. Is that motion clear enough? We'll see it back in minutes.
Yeah.
I'll call the vote, all in favor. That's scary. Thanks again, Lucas.
Okay, have a wonderful night.
You too. Okay, we have the school report.
Okay, so we'll now have just a little verbal update from Craig on alley maintenance.
Good evening. So maybe I'll just open it up real quick. Does anybody have any questions about the first quarter report or any of that stuff?
Just quickly.
Probably good.
Yeah, it says here, people asking about street sweeping, and I'm just wondering about street sweeping because it snowed early last year and we still, like on 22nd, we still have all the leaves from the trees because ours are some of the last fall. So I just wondered if there is going to be street sweeping this year or if we cut that out of the budget.
Well, we haven't cut it out of the budget, but it's not the high priority for us. So we do what we can in between doing all the other activities with the number of staff we have. So that's kind of how we do the street sweeping because it's really not a critical infrastructure sort of operation. So we kind of just sort of squeeze that in when we can. And
remembering that they're your trees that are dropping the leaves, not the owner.
Comment, if I may, and I want to give kudos to the department, the Public Works Department, because there isn't a single complaint here about 23rd north of 580.
Yeah.
Not one, I'll give you one.
We don't take them anymore, actually.
If you mentioned that, it hangs up.
Councilor Moore?
And another kudo, thank you for doing all that street sweeping on Main Street for the show and shine. It looked really nice, thank you.
we did do some priority sort of street sweeping to prepare the downtown core for the event, that's for sure. And just to Councillor Windsor's point, I'm unfortunately got to draw your attention to 11 complaints with respect to Range Road 20, which is the same thing as 23rd Street. So we did get the odd, complaint. But
I have just about the CA report because when is 21st Street, is there a start date?
yeah, so thank you for that question. I did anticipate that one and was prepared to talk to it. So yeah, we do have a site meeting, kickoff meeting on Thursday. There was a little bit of delay with getting materials selected because we're in a highly competitive material purchasing environment. So what was spec'd wasn't available. We did an approved alternate. Found out that the approved alternate wasn't available, and then we approved another approved alternate, and hopefully that's been procured by now, because if it hasn't, we'll probably have to review that again, and I don't know if there's other pipes that we can approve to go into the ground right now. So we were struggling to try and get the right type of materials while keeping the price the same. So we were making some trade-offs with various other items on the contract list to try and keep the price consistent with what was tendered. So we've kind of got that all sort of worked out. We're going through shop drawings. Contracts are being delivered to us on Thursday for execution.
And I know I've seen the asphalt machine, asphalt repair, and I think it's awesome, and I suggested to Craig earlier that people should probably paint flowers on them or something. To make the area look really nice. But another part too, like with our roads you have, I think the only one, there's a piece in front of the complex. And that's over the road rehab, but we're doing some work in that area.
Oh, as far as the complex road stormwater? Yeah, so what we've done right now, because that one's a bit of it's not a very big project in total, and with the 21st Street project, it really looks like there's favorable pricing to be able to sort of do a change order so that the same contractor group can perform both projects for us at the same time. So it saves us a whole bunch of administrative work for going out to market for the same sort of thing while using very favorable pricing based on local contractors.
And so with all that together, you're signing contracts and whatnot, and we get to level step 3 with your project or the materials. Are we looking at June?
For the complex road?
Well, for this company, for maybe they'll come and do their work.
Well, so in essence, 10 days after the kickoff meeting is when we would like to see equipment flying. So that's sort of in line with the materials got approved, shop drawings are being reviewed, procurement will occur, and then that short delivery time that we always put the suppliers under to kind of have the materials on site. So it gives the contractor about 2.5 weeks to open up the ground, which means a whole lot of surface removal. We run water lines for temporary water because we've got a lot of water lines to run to keep the residents with potable water. So all of that activity will happen while materials start showing up on site, so we can start doing the actual work. So.
How long will it take? My last question.
You know what, I haven't had a chance to review the schedule yet. I knew they delivered it to the engineers on Friday, and it's part of the schedule, it's part of the contract package that I'll get on Thursday. So I haven't had time to review that yet. But it will take a couple of months, I would think is probably a sort of a reasonable time frame. So once we get through 21st, because it is 2 blocks, it is all 3 services, and then get the complex road hopefully done at the same time, so there'll be equipment running around. It'll be a pretty busy time for us.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, you betcha. So the other topic I meant to put in a written format. I kind of missed it when I submitted my CAO report, but it is the back alley maintenance. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick, because last year when the grader failed, it failed at sort of like that opportune worst time, just as we were supposed to be starting our alley maintenance activities. And so we didn't get a chance to do any alley maintenance all year last year. And we didn't get our loaner grader until late fall. So that brings us into this year, and kind of simultaneously and to our detriment, ATCO had a bunch of cathodic anodes to replace, which are associated with their steel gas lines. They put in these anodes in the ground that corrode instead of the gas line corroding, so they're really critical for ATCO's maintenance requirements. But they had to go into some of our back alleys and cut big long trenches to install these anodes and connect them electrically to their gas lines. They did that during the winter with hydrovacs backfilled with sort of maybe not the best material at the time because it was frozen, and we experienced a couple of failures in our back alleys that resulted in some pretty significant potholes that residents were dealing with. And so we got, I think, 3 phone calls on those, specifically at Public Works, and so we worked with ATCO rather expeditiously to get those fixed. So I'm not sure if maybe some of the concerns about back alleys have come from those 2 sites that ATCO had worked on, but we've got those repaired now, working with ATCO. But we will be getting onto the back alley maintenance as opportunities arise, because again, it's not really a high critical activity. So with the water loss, sort of trying to prioritize what I think council's told my department is priority, which is the road thoroughfares, potholes, and the water loss. So I think that's where we'll be focusing predominantly this year, unless I receive direction elsewise. But we don't have a ton of money to throw into back alleys, but we will do what we can, and probably action request based, try and hit the ones that we're getting the most concerns raised about. But unless there's any further direction that you want to give me on that.
I would like to suggest that when we do start our discussions, and then we need to get the performance evaluation committee to work too, we start these kinds of conversations about expectations of, and you're right, it is up to council to direct that and provide the funding, but do we want them done twice a year? Do we want them done 3 times a year? Do we want the high-use alleys done more often? And I think it's a good conversation for council to have again. And we are just got through this budget, so we're going to start on the next one. And I think at that point, we have to look at those things. That a lot of people, there's a lot of alleys in Disbury, but it is really up to council to address that. And we do have a committee that can get to work on some of that. Anyway, those are just my comments. And for now, thanks for that update. Are there any questions about alleys, or?
I don't have that.
I just raised, so. So, thanks for that update, though. I appreciate it. And I think as all this stuff comes out, we start talking about it a bit more. And this time of year, we talk about spring thaw and stuff like that even more so because of what the thaw is doing to our alleys and roads. Great. So do you have another update?
Yeah, I have a few more verbals, sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
So congratulations on passing your budget tonight. Well done. It's been a good experience, I think, for everybody. everybody and a good process, and I think everyone was able to be a big part of that wrestle throughout that process. Now that that's completed, we're now going to be looking at starting up our committee work again, now that that's been, couldn't have done both at the same time. And so you'll be, within the next kind of couple of weeks here, you'll be hearing each of you, with regards to your committees, you'll be hearing from the respective administrative teams to start gauging availability and times and things like that. We'll probably start with the times that were done previously to see if that still works with the committee members, but just so you know, that'll be kind of forthcoming here in the next short while. And with that, the starting process for each of the committees will be to organize themselves, to appoint themselves, if they haven't done so yet already, some already have, but to appoint their chair, as well as to start having some initial conversations about their committee plans. And not to mention the dockets that some of the committees already have, so one of which has quite a few things on it. So that might be their plan, because that's about it. Yeah. So that's exciting, because we're really excited to get back into our committee work, which is where a lot of the fun stuff happens. So committee work is actually a lot of the enjoyable stuff that we do, where we improve things and bring back some good recommendations for council. A couple of other quick things. We've had some questions recently from some business owners in town about patio dining. It's been well received and run quite successfully in town, and so just we want to note here that council in the fall of last year approved an extension to that allowance till the end of this year. So everyone has been informed that they can carry on this summer with their patio dining. So we're looking forward to another summer of that. And that's that's the end of my CAO report.
Great, any questions? I only have one about patios, and do they still come to the town and say, I'm gonna take these 3 spots and that's where we're gonna go, or is that a process?
So all the businesses were issued special permits for those patios, and so those were
So it
just
just
extended.
carries
So
over.
it's just still their existing permits that have just been extended. We have had a few come in because they've had a few changes to their plan that Leanne's just helped to sort out. So
Some nice ones popped up.
yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
So was there sort of a set or standard size of patio that each business was allowed to have, or did we accommodate different businesses with different sizes? And I'm only basing that on an observation of one that seemed very large.
They're busy, though, they need all the seats.
Well, it again, when we're talking about downtown parking, 2-hour parking, I guess my question is, are the patios supposed to be 3 spaces or 4 spaces, or was that set? I forget.
And I don't have it in front of me, so to keep it at a high level without getting into a specific about each business, but there was some principles set forth in that allowance, that special approval that was given, some parameters that guided the way that it would work, which was adaptable depending on the business. And our development staff have worked with individual businesses based on unique circumstances. We had a few that had very unique circumstances that we kind of worked with them to help them find a workable way to make that work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I find it really interesting that, not for me, but for the kind of thing, we have one of the people went on an appeal about parking, which totally shut down the building of that medical clinic on the corner, and now he's got 2 or 3 parking spaces blocked off. Isn't that interesting? So, you know, I don't know how that plays into things, but it's a little bothersome that, I don't know what, there's a term for that. And I'm trying to be polite and ladies here.
You said that very eloquently.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, they're complaining about parking, but they're putting all these things on this main street to block parking and holding up other development because of their opinion on that. It doesn't compute with me. I don't know what these people are coming from. And I guess I'll have to just go in and talk to Theo and say, what you doing? So, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was CSC.
I just had to vent.
That's fair.
You've been pretty quiet so far, so.
Yeah, I didn't get my dessert tonight.
Yeah. All right, so we have a,
Need a Snickers?
we have the CEO report, accept as information. Councillor Baswick?
Sure, I'd like to move that we accept the CAO's eloquent report as information.
I like that.
I think it was a report by the CEO with an eloquent statement by Dr. Baswick, Councillor Baswick. Oh, goodness. I give it up. I give you away. Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And now we have council reports. And I really don't know who to start with anymore, so I'll start with Councillor McCoy. I'll start in the middle.
Okay, so a number of things happened. I went on that leadership event to Jasper. Anyways, it was very educational, and I'm still making notes, or I have lots of notes. I have to put them into something that will resemble something you can learn from, not just one random chicken scratch. But there was some great speakers there, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of that ideas with you. Then last week, Cape Board, 7 of us went to Enhanced Energy out in Clive area, and had a tour of the plant, and they explained how far it's come from Fort Saskatchewan or wherever, and then down to Clive where it shuts off. And they talked about the future development down in our area. That was really interesting. And then we had the chili day, and Ethan and I thought we did great. And we didn't win. However, it was only because Ethan's pockets weren't deep as deep as Dr. Corey Krebs's. All our pockets were. But it was a lot of fun, and a lot of people came out.
So are you penning a report on Clive?
Yes.
As well? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And only because it's now, not because it's your report, but we used to have a 2-week time period that I think the policy, and maybe, I know it's taken out, but maybe I just want to remind everybody that I'm not expecting 2 weeks, but I think all of us, you know, are timely, and everybody's life's busy, but to get those reports in so that we can take a look in as timely manner as you can. That was a friendly reminder. Okay, thanks for that,
Councillor McCoy. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. As my colleague stated earlier, on April 30th, we did compete in the Chamber Cook-Off, Chili Cook-Off. Unfortunately, our neighbors, Mountain County Council, they won, came first place. I do like to note the fact that Councillor Krebs did buy 5 tickets at the end to bring chili home to all of his family. But it was a great time, and I hope to do it again next year. And Sundry won the right to host it next year, so I look forward to attending next year. And plus, last week, Councilor Baswick and I had a nice, productive NPC meeting of the 27th of April. Let's hear it goes. And at that meeting, we welcomed a new individual, Karen, which is a great addition to the NPC, and we discussed a development for a permanent highways bill. That's all I have to report.
And you approved that?
Yes.
It was very, great. It'd be nice to see.
I do want to ask though, were you not allowed to buy tickets like Councillor Krebs? You guys?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And then
No, I mean-
asked Kurt to come, but he didn't. He said he'd give us a couple $100 if we knew that.
I didn't know the rules.
No, I thought maybe the chamber wouldn't take your money, and so that's why Councillor Krebs went.
I did put some nice money in and bought some tickets, but unfortunately.
Yeah, it didn't make the difference.
I do want to give a shout out though to Deputy Rangel, is he did help us out on the morning of, and he provided a secret ingredient, family ingredient that he added to the chili, which was a good ingredient.
People like that.
All right.
Deputy Mayor, since everybody's.
I had no official committees, but I would like to report that the Show and Shine was able to go in town on the weekend. I think people probably noticed that. It's been over 2 years, or not over, but 2 years since that event happened. And I know Councillor Windsor, I think, has one coming up this year that he's a part of. And I just wanted to give a shout out, I think, to the residents of this town, because I think that's really who showed up and filled the streets. And I'm going to ask them to do the same when Days of Yore comes around. I think that we really need to support these. We saw the support, we appreciate it as a club. I'm not as a councillor, and I know that Days of Yore would also appreciate that same support. So I think that the proprietors of the town of Didsbury were the winners in that. I think that their stores and shops and that were well visited. I would like to say that you guys didn't really lose the chili cook-off. I think the chamber just turned out to be the winner. You raised some money for the chamber, and I shall end it there.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I was unable to attend the last Waste Commission meeting, and Councillor Moore, the alternate attended on my stead. You'll see in the external reports the financial audit report as well as the minutes from that meeting. Parkland Regional Library, they're actually going to be reviewing the population calculations, population that is used in the calculations. That's coming to the board in the next meeting. And that will be a very interesting discussion to see where we go with that. There won't be an adjustment to the budget this year, but there certainly will be to the budget next year. That there is, we can thank Heather Ryan of the town of Olds for bringing that to the executive to be put on the agenda of the board. RDR Mug, we're having a presentation, again, working through Acadia Valley and what they're doing out there, but also a presentation from WaterSmart, who can predict what the flow rates and volumes on the Red Deer River through the course of the year based on variables that are available to us, like snowpack and temperatures. So that'll be a very interesting thing that we'll have through the RDR Mug. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
Yes, I was pleased to attend the Waste Commission, and it was really interesting. The key messages from Mount View Seniors Housing arrived too late for this agenda, so they'll be in the next package. We have finished our interviews now, and we have excellent candidates, so there should be, in the next week, an announcement of what we're doing next. And had a meeting as well, and we will be talking about some of that in closed session. So that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Baswick.
Yeah, you've already heard from my colleague, Young Ed, about MPC, so I won't cover that. And as far as the Water Commission goes, I have forwarded the agenda to Elena, who appears to be missing. And so it'll be there. And the meeting will be tomorrow, so not being clairvoyant, I can't tell you what's going to happen until I get there. So that's my report.
Thank you for those. Since Councillor or Deputy Mayor Engel shamelessly shared about the car club, I'd like you to know about all those grad banners that hang up on our lampposts, and that there is a fundraiser for those grad banners. And you can go onto the grad banners, DHS grad banners support and challenge on Facebook, and you can find the email and you can donate towards the banners. So there's 71 grads this year, and there's some of us alumni that look after that. And I think that's, our schools are very valuable as our grads, so I'm getting my little plug in as well for something that's relative to our community that we all love, like the car show. And I did go to a couple curling games, so that was really thanks to Maridol and her generosity and of Old's council as well. But I did sit on an infrastructure committee meeting with Alberta municipalities that I'm going to bring some highlights back but I just want to tell Craig how I've always believed you about everything and procuring for costs and tenders and whatnot, but the Construction Association of Canada was there, and there's Amazon and 5 online companies bought up all the steel interests in North America to have the market on it, to have the corner on it, and it's really creating a big problem. And that's just one of the problems in that. The other one is quotes, like you say, you get a quote and it's only good for 24 hours. And companies like PCL they're shutting down on quotes because they can't hold a quote for long enough to not lose $8 million on what they bid. So they're looking at different avenues of how to, write into their quotes and tenders that with market changes, it has to allow that tender to change. So that was a really important, really interesting part of the, it's all interesting, but to listen to those groups as well as the construction, or the Road Builders Association of Alberta was there too with the presentation. So I will do an overview of them because it just really opened my eyes even more so as to the global impact that our director always talks about. And so those were things that I've been doing, and I've been doing more, but I'll stop there. And we'll have a motion to accept the council reports as information. Okay.
I move that council move to accept the council reports from May 10th, 2022 as information.
All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Sure.
I move that council accept the presented correspondence items as information.
Any questions or comments on them? Call the vote. All in favor? It's carried. And council meeting highlights. I'll go the reverse and start with, you want to defer the council meeting highlights?
Move on. We don't know what we're going to get into.
Oh, the closed is short, but we can defer. If everybody's fine, we can defer the council highlights to those of us that.
We'll have Luanna do them.
I'll Luanna do them. I'll just do them, and then you guys want to put up with what I put together. Okay, so then we'll move on to question period. I see none. And I'll entertain a motion to go closed at 9:21. Okay. All in favor? That's carried.
And it should be quick.